And we are live on a Tuesday here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And watch the show live at 97.3ESPN.com. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Jennings producing today's show. And you out there. Oh, man. So we got a ton to dive into today. We could start wherever you'd like. Some interesting news with the Flyers. Yes, the Flyers maybe take the top spot in the order today with releasing Shane Gossisbehere. Well, they waived him. So if he passes through waivers, I guess they can bring him back. But what is the motivation behind this move? Flyers win last night, by the way. Come from behind. They were down 3-0 in that game. Flyers Twitter, which is not like a cesspool like other Twitter, but it's getting there. They want everybody fired. Everybody's got to go. They want people to fight. They want people to show more passion. I got better insight for you. How about better talent? That would be helpful. They didn't have a lot of fight. They didn't have a lot of jam, if you will, last night. Team's just not very good. That's what it comes down to for me. Team's not very good. Defensively, they stink. They've always been a mediocre offensive team. They've had the same core of offensive players for what? The last 10 years. You can replace the parts. I mean, Kevin Hayes replaces Wayne Simmons. It's essentially the same guy. Just a mediocre scorer who works hard. Couturier, great, I don't want to say he's not a great scorer. Great player, but he's not a big-time scorer. Claude Giroux, Voracek, same two guys. I mean, it's like Groundhog's Day. This shouldn't be a surprise. The surprise should be that last year they sucked us in a little bit. And look, the goalie's having some major problems right now. But I think a lot of it stems from this team just not very talented. That's what it comes down to. Team, to me, just not very talented. They're a middle-of-the-road talent team. Same, second verse, same as the first. A team led by Claude Giroux is going to be a good team. Not great. Not that he stinks. I'm not blaming Claude Giroux. That's who they are. This is who they've been. The Claude Giroux-led Flyers are who they are. They're just an okay team. You're down 3-0 to a team that lost 17 straight games. Yes, I said 17 straight games. And you're down 3-0. Now, give them credit. They fought their way back. They scored 3 goals in the third, got the overtime goal, boom, get the 4-3 win. Today, they make the announcement that Gossisbehere is going to be waived. Vigneault spoke about 45 minutes ago. He essentially said, nothing. I can't imagine, there's always got to be a reason, right? There's got to be a reason why you would do something like this. And is it one of those things where you're like, hey, we just want to shake something up? Are they basically proving a point? What are they getting out of this? Interesting. Durso's writing a story right now at 97.3ESPN.com. He'll have more on that. But he tweeted this out 29 minutes ago. I was talking to Durso back about an hour ago when this news came out. And Durso tweets, there's no way this is just about cap flexibility on the 23-man roster. Because if it were, you would have waived the defenseman making $3 million this season that hasn't played in a week. There's way more to this than that. That's what Kevin Durso tweeted a little while ago. Now, Alain Vigneault says he believes Gossisbehere will clear waivers. He makes $4.5 million. So it does provide more flexibility on the 23-man roster. Does it mean that there's a big trade coming? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to put Gossisbehere on waivers just to do it. Durso and I were texting back and forth about this earlier. We both agreed. He hasn't been very good, but is he the worst guy on this team? It seems that something else has to be there. So we don't generally come out with the fastball talking Flyers, but I thought Shane Gossisbehere, I bring this up because I can vividly remember, right? How many people out there, the casual Flyers fan, the hardcore Flyers fan, I can vividly remember when Ed Snyder, when he was, running the team, obviously, this had to be, I would imagine, 5 or so years ago when they drafted Shane Gossisbehere and he was in the system and they had a bad season. And Snyder came out and said, "Gots to be here. He's got to be here." In other words, it's time for our young players to get up here and play. And then Gossisbehere came up that year and had a tremendous impact his rookie season. And look, the problem for Gossisbehere isn't putting the puck in the net. He's still a very good offensive-minded defender. The issue is that's not what this team needs. They need a physical guy at the blue line. Look, this was a guy who at one point, he had 46 points as a rookie and 65 points the next season. I feel like the Flyers don't have forwards who have as much offensive production as that. This guy was in the conversation for a Norris Trophy at one point. And much like the Flyers, the Phillies did with Scott Kingery, a little bit different, but they jumped up and gave him a 6-year, $27 million deal. And that looked like good value, just like the Kingery value. Hey, we're going to jump on get you early in your career. But man, how things have changed for this kid. Defensively, he's just terrible. I mean, that's essentially what it is. He's terrible defensively. You know what they should do? Put Sam Moran back there at defense and tell Gossisbehere to go play left wing. I mean, for God's sake, hey, Sam, you want to go try to play left wing? Okay. I mean, he essentially is doing whatever he can to try to salvage his career here. How about trying Gossisbehere at that spot? I talk kind of tongue-in-cheek, but for real, Gossisbehere's terrible defensively. He's horrible. Here's a guy in Gossisbehere. Think about this. Think about the year this guy's had. If you're paying attention to the Flyers and you're watching this team, you're scratching your head thinking, Shane Gossisbehere has been on the top pairing. He's been on the last pairing. He's been a healthy scratch. They treat Gossisbehere essentially the way the Phillies treated Scott Kingery. He had a young talent, and I think the Flyers just handled it wrong with this guy. He's now 27 years old, a lot like Kingery, and at a total crossroads of his career. It's kind of interesting. These guys, I think Kingery's 26 now. It feels like Kingery should be 23. The way the Flyers, who is? Kingery's turning 27. So I feel like Kingery and Gossisbehere are two guys who are very similar. They were young players. Gossisbehere a little different because he got drafted, had a solid, great college career. He comes in and he has a tremendous rookie season. Kingery didn't come in and have this tremendous rookie season, but he had that great, I think he hit like 400 in spring training the year that the Phillies ended up saying, you know what, we're going to sign this guy. He had ripped up AA. He had ripped up every league he had played in. I want to try to get, and maybe we can send a text to Marcus Hayes. I want to try to get Marcus Hayes on. He wrote an article today about Kingery and how the organization essentially failed him. And it wasn't so much the organization that it was this analytic world that baseball is married to. You had a guy in Scott Kingery that was essentially a baseball player first, and the Philadelphia Phillies, with their philosophy when they brought Matt Klentak in and Gabe Kapler, which was, we are going to strip you down from being a baseball player, and we are going to turn you into an analytic player. And what's the difference? Well, a baseball player is instinctual. A baseball player hits it where it's pitched. A baseball player plays baseball the way that baseball is supposed to be played. An analytic guy plays baseball the way he's told to play baseball. And Scott Kingery is a baseball player. He's not a guy that can be told how to play the game. They tried to reprogram him. Look, launch angle and exit velocity works for certain guys. I'm not saying it doesn't work at all. I'm not naive to say that it's just completely doesn't work. You can't teach everybody the same thing. It's not a one-stop shop, this game of baseball. So you can't walk in and say, hey, Bryce Harper, we want you to have the same swing as Scott Kingery. Hey, Scott Kingery, we want you to have the same swing as Alec Boehm or Rhys Hoskins. It doesn't work that way. And the Phillies essentially ruined this kid. And I'm not saying the Flyers ruined Shane Gossisbehere, but I would say that the early success that Shane Gossisbehere had and how he kind of got put up on this platform, and I say this platform, he was having so much success early in his career that the negatives that he brought to the table in terms of as his position, defensive men, were not pointed out. Why? Because like in most sports, most genres of the athletic field, offensive output reigns supreme. Scott Kingery could have been a Gold Glove second baseman, but the Phillies decided to make him a super utility player. Why? So that Cesar Hernandez can get a couple extra at-bats? It's ridiculous. Scott Kingery was a Gold Glove level second baseman. And essentially they said, go play short, go play third, go play center. Every position but the one that he excelled in. And Shane Gossisbehere, and that's because defense not valued. His defense as a second baseman not valued. Oh, we got to get his offense. We got to figure out a way to get his offense into the lineup. So go play all these other positions. Shane Gossisbehere, hey, this guy's producing. He's scoring points. He's putting the puck in the net. He's as many points as he scores for you, defensively, horrendous. It's a very interesting parallel between these two young players that were thought to be difference-making players for these organizations, for their respective organizations. So I don't know what's going to happen with Gossisbehere. I would imagine he signs someplace else. I would imagine there's going to be a market for a guy who can put the puck in the net from the blue line. Those guys are valued. Unfortunately, on this team, they've got Provorov, who does, is an offensive-minded defensiveman who's a much better defensive player than Gossisbehere is. So it's hard to pair them together. And you have a situation where they won the game last night, by the way. Good for them. They needed that win in the worst way. You fall down and lose to the Buffalo Sabres. Man, it was funny. At one point, Sam Carchidi, who covers the Flyers, tweeted, sell, sell, sell. About an hour later, he wrote, buy, buy, buy. By the way, Scott Kingery, 27 years old on April 29th. Gossisbehere, 28 on April 20th. These guys are both what? Virgos? Would that be a Virgo? Or an Aries for April? Josh says, you're asking the wrong person. I just found the parallel between these two young players who are kind of at a crossroads of their career, right? I feel that these players are at a crossroads of their Philadelphia existence. And it's like, how did it get here with these two guys? How did these two guys get to this point where the parallels of one being released, waived today, and the other one getting shipped down to the minors earlier this week. And like, these are two guys that you felt by 27 years old, we'd be talking about perennial all-star Shane Gossisbehere and perennial all-star Scott Kingery. That's what it was supposed to be. I mean, they almost signed identical type of deals. I mean, I think Gossisbehere got $3 million more. He got a 6-year, $27 million deal. I think Kingery got a 6-year, $24 million deal. Isn't it eerie, like the parallels in these two guys' careers? And I'll tell you, the Kingery one, I was way off on. I thought, and by the way, so I was off on him, not once, but I believed in him once, and I went off on him now twice. And I don't know what to think. I don't think Kingery sucks at baseball. I think the Phillies failed this guy. I really do. I think the Phillies failed this kid. I agree. I read the Marcus Hayes article today, and if you follow me on Twitter, I actually tweeted out, great article by Marcus Hayes. I thought it was very well done. Is that we've fallen into this world where one guy excels hitting a certain way, so we try teaching everybody how to hit the same way. Hey, it worked for that guy. Now I got to try to hit like that. That's the way the world works. It worked for him. Now I got to do it. Well, it worked for Mike Trout. Guess what? You're not Mike Trout. What works for Bryce Harper, it doesn't work for you. That's why I love Alec Boehm, what he brings to the table. He's a spray hitter, hits the ball all over the place. His natural swing is his swing. He didn't have somebody say, you know what? I got a way to change your swing. Let me try to, have you hit the ball by doing X, Y, or Z when you want to do A, B, or C. I think the Phillies are at fault with Scott Kingery. Big time. We'll talk to Frank Close, 240 today. Frank, by the way, give Frank a lot of credit. We had a lot of people talking Phillies on the show, and Frank was just absolutely the one guy who essentially never gave Odubel Herrera a shot to make this team. Frank said from the get-go, he just did not see a way that the Phillies were going to keep him for a variety of reasons. One, the PR problem, but two, and give Frank a lot of credit for this. Frank mentioned it. He mapped it out. The 40-man roster thing was going to be a big problem. And number three, I think Frank was one of the few guys that also mentioned that his performance, this goes back to the conversation we just had. Shane Gossisbehere was lauded. Why? Because he put the puck in the net. He sucked defensively, but he put the puck in the net. Oh, he's great. Scott Kingery, who's a great defensive player, struggled on offense because we only care about offense. The Phillies didn't care that his best position was, hey, he could be a Gold Glove second baseman. Let's throw him at shortstop or put him in center field. And in baseball, we see the one thing they show us. There's a home run by Odubel Herrera. He's got another home run. He's having a great spring. He had a crappy spring. In the end, Odubel Herrera got on base 24% of the time. That's terrible. Of the three outfielders that were in the battle on the last day, Herrera's numbers, take out the home runs, were the worst. Herrera essentially lost the battle in center field. He lost the battle in center field. And I'm not saying this because people out there fighting for him. Why did he make the team? Now, there are some people that say, they didn't keep the best guy. And maybe track record-wise, they didn't keep the best guy. But for what happened in the month of spring training, he was the worst. He hit the most home runs. Maybe he has the best launch angle. Maybe his exit velo is better than everybody else's. But guess what? He was the worst of the three guys. More on that story at 973ESPN.com. Frank's Phillies mailbag is coming up at 2:40 today. We will take a look at what questions you sent Frank for this week's mailbag. It's the Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. At Matt Blatt Kia, they want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. If you're watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, how about sharing the show for us? Get that out there for everybody else so they can watch the show and be a part of the show. You can text in 609-403-0973. Frank Close at 240. Jeff Nadeau will tell us how to bet the games tonight. Mark Jackson inside the Sixers today at 3:20. Andrew DiCecco will talk a little NFL draft and Eagles with us at football at 4. And it's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT's here at 5 o'clock. We'll be sure to get his take on Shane Gossisbehere. Kevin Durso has more on Shane Gossisbehere being waived today by the Flyers and what it means coming up on 97.3 ESPN.com. Download the free mobile app and get free alerts sent right to your phone with the latest breaking news. We ready to do this today? All right. Follow me on Twitter, at Mike Gill Show. It's going to be a fun day. I can feel it already. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, and the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle.
It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates calling all the play-by-play action.
He scored!
The Flyers are in Buffalo to face the Sabres tomorrow. Coverage begins at 7:30. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on the radio home of the Flyers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN and listen live on the free mobile app.
Got a bucket list? Okay, now imagine the list if you won the $152 million Mega Millions jackpot. Taking a mega chance could mean making your wildest dreams a reality. After all, anything can happen in Jersey.
Oh, yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is receiving a special allocation of new Nissans, and we need your trade. So get out of that old car, truck, or SUV and into a brand new 2021 Nissan Murano. $5,000 off MSRP, plus 0 down and 0% APR financing for 60 months on new in-stock Nissan Sentras and Altimas. Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot wants to approve your credit today so you can drive a new Nissan with 0 down payment and 0% APR financing, plus our fast track checkout online at mattblattnissan.com. So bring any trade to Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township or at mattblattnissan.com. On approved credit, negative equity will be refinanced into new vehicle. All factory rebates and incentives to dealer. Not all will qualify. 0% APR financing based on $13.33 per 1,000 borrowed. Murano 8 to choose. Offers can't be combined. Call 888-731-5030 for all the details. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
Oh, yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Guys, we need to clear a path here.
Indeed knows unexpected employee turnover can stall your business.
Like tonight. John.
Like at Chris's Logistics Company. To avoid things grinding to a halt, he needs to get started hiring right away.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
GoldenNuggetSports.com. Place a bet on your favorite team with daily odds boost with Golden Lines or enhanced parlays with Parlay Boost. You can also play New Jersey's largest selection of games, including online slots, blackjack, roulette, and many more on your phone or laptop. Only at GoldenNuggetSports.com. Check out today's enhanced odds and specials and enter to win a car with the Big 3 giveaway only at GoldenNuggetSports.com, where players come first. Must be 21 or older. Only available in New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You decided to upgrade your outdoor deck. So you ordered the essentials: a power washer, a set of patio chairs, and a shiny new grill. And you use your Bank of America Cash Rewards credit card, choosing to earn 3% cash back on online shopping and up to 5.25% as a preferred rewards member, which you put towards your most essential deck addition, a bird feeder. Apply for yours at bankofamerica.com/more rewarding. Copyright 2020 Bank of America Corporation.
We know you're spending a lot of time at home, and maybe that home could use a little TLC. Since going to a home show isn't really a thing right now, 97.3 ESPN FM is bringing the home show to you. Local exhibitors have been setting up in a virtual show featuring the latest products and services for your home. Go to 973ESPN.com to find great articles on home improvement tips and trends. Thanks to our friends at Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Broadleys.net, your trusted source for 3 generations.
Welcome back to the quickest podcast ever, brought to you by Kohl's. Today's topic, Easter. I'm ready to break out the bunny decor. Same. Kohl's has so many cute things. You can decorate pretty much everything, even Easter eggs. My family will be so excited. I got great gifts for my favorite peeps, too. Ooh, love peeps. Plus, I got Kohl's Cash and 15% off. I'm sold. One more thing. Get it in 1 hour or less with free store pickup. I'm gonna hop to it. 15% offer ends April 3rd. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Progressive presents an interview with your upstairs neighbor.
Hi, I'm Tia. The upstairs-downstairs neighbor dynamic is so special. We have our own language. Like when I scream at my mom on the phone, the people downstairs bang on the ceiling to show their support. The nighttime's the best time to rearrange furniture. I call it midnight feng shui. And if I sleep through my alarm in the morning, they bang on my door to wake me. So thoughtful.
Progressive can't save you from your upstairs neighbor, but we can save you money when you bundle renters and auto insurance with us. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
226. Frank will join us in 14 minutes. Stick around. We'll answer the Phillies mailbag and, of course, a lot of Phillies conversation. Mike, you're making a lot of excuses for Kingery. Maybe he's just not as good as you thought he was going to be. Maybe. Did the Braves ruin Jeff Francoeur or Jason Hayward when they broke out, or were they just overhyped and not that good? You just gave me two guys, though, that played a position. They played him in that position and just put them there. Scott Kingery is a guy who played second base. And look, you might be right. I'm just saying, I feel that for a young kid who never played in the big leagues, they signed him to the contract, and then instead of saying you're a second baseman, they decided to put him all over the field and then changed his swing. They essentially said, look, you're a line drive hitter. We want you to be a guy who hits with launch angle. We want you to try to be a home run hitter. So it might sound like an excuse if I said, hey, dude, I don't want you to hit the way that you've excelled your whole career. You've dominated college. You've dominated the winter leagues. You've dominated in minor leagues. You've hit. But now we want you to hit another way. If that's an excuse, fine. It sounds like an excuse. But I know that I wouldn't want to be told at 23 years old, hey, you have been doing it wrong your whole career, and you've excelled while doing it wrong, and we're going to change it and now try to fix you. Is that an excuse? I don't know. I certainly don't think I would want that to happen. If I went into the big leagues, did it the way that I did it my whole career, and struggled, and they said, hey, we let you do it your way, you're struggling, now we want to try to fix it because you're struggling so much, that's a different story. He essentially came into the big leagues, and they never gave him a chance to do what he did. They said, we are going to try to fix you immediately. So maybe it's an excuse. I don't know why anybody would care. That's a viable excuse. Like if you just want to take the other side because you feel like arguing, fine. But if you think Scott Kingery got a fair opportunity to play the way that he dominated, and the reason why the Phillies took him, and by the way, the reason why the Phillies fast-tracked him was based on the way that he had performed doing it the way that he had done it. Once Matt Klentak and Gabe Kapler got here, they essentially said, we're going to go with analytics. We want you to hit with launch angle. We want you to hit with exit velocity. We want that to improve. So we don't care that you're a guy that can hit the ball all over the yard. We don't care that you're a guy that hits line drives gap to gap. We want you to be a guy that can pop 25 homers. And if you remember his first season, he hit, 19 home runs. And it looked like, this is a guy that has some pop. You know, his first season, we talked about Gossisbehere, who came in and had, scored all those game-winning goals. You remember, he felt like he had a game-winning goal almost every single night of the week. But Scott Kingery, if you recall, the first season that he came up and played with the Phillies, it wasn't like he was severely overmatched. If you go back to when he played in Philadelphia in 2018 and 2019, he hit 226, which isn't great, by the way. But that was like his rookie season. His second year, he comes up, he hits 258. He had 19 home runs. So he's hitting the home runs that they wanted him to hit. The problem is everything else was suffering. His on-base percentage, 267, 315, 228. His strikeouts are just astronomical. Of course, you ever see Scott Kingery swing? He's got this half-ass looping swing. It's not him. Look, it's not for everybody. Not everybody could be a launch angle hitter. Not everybody could be a launch angle hitter. You know, it's criminal sometimes. It's like, hey, look what that kid did. Well, I want my kid to hit like that kid. Well, you took him here. No, you can't do that. Scott Kingery is a great example. There's a lot of other guys who are like that, by the way. It's not just Scott Kingery. But Scott Kingery is a guy who all he did was hit. Everywhere he went, he hit. And again, I mixed in as well. I think the Phillies, they played him at every position, but the position that he came up to play. If you look at 2019, he played 10 games at second base. He played 18 at short. He played 41 at third. He played 69 in the outfield. It's not a recipe for success for a kid who, by the way, signed a contract before he ever stepped on the field. And you would say, that's not their fault. No, it's not. And Kingery signed the deal. So part of that's in there as well. 609-403-0973. Hey, Mike, does anyone else see a pattern here that it might be a Philadelphia thing that their sports teams fail their athletes? I mean, I don't think there's any connection there. I don't see where one organization and another organization in the same town would have any parallels of how they run their organizations and why certain players wouldn't be the player that we anticipated them being. I feel like this story happens in a lot of towns, a lot of cities, but I also understand that Philadelphia likes the whole woe is us attitude. It's like we thrive on all the announcers on television hate the Eagles. All we players here don't live up to expectations. You know, our GMs are always the worst. It's not the case. The announcers don't hate the Eagles. The GM's not the worst. We don't have players who fail only in Philadelphia. Other towns have this that happened, you know, namely, the Jets, the Browns, the Raiders, many other football teams, baseball teams, all over the place have young players who just don't live up to it. And as I said, Kingery is a guy, and I did my 10 predictions for the Phillies baseball season. Some of them are already materializing. One of them seemingly is Scott Kingery I'm going to be wrong on. So if I bring those back up, let me see if I can find my 10 predictions on the Philadelphia Phillies season and see which ones are already out the window. Because one of my predictions would be that Scott Kingery would have a big year. And I felt like two opportunities to be away from the whole analytic mindset that they kind of pumped into his head. The problem is and he talked about this a little bit today, that the Phillies want him to go down and have like one hitting coach kind of be in his head or his ear. They don't want all of these guys in his head. So my 10 predictions for the Phillies season. Bryce Harper will have his best season with the Phillies. That remains to be seen. Alec Bohm will show he's the real deal. That remains to be seen. Scott Kingery will have a bounce-back year and get plenty of playing time all over the diamond. I mean, it remains to be seen. They could call Kingery up at some point, and he could still have a bounce-back year. I said expect 280, 17 homers, 65 RBIs, and 15 stolen bases. I don't think that's going to happen. But as I mentioned, I think he'll lose the center field battle, but get plenty of time playing second, third, and short. Bounce back year, doesn't look like that one's going to be coming to fruition. Number 3, bullpen will be significantly better than 2021. Remains to be seen. The best arm in the bullpen will be Connor Brogdon. Remains to be seen. Adam Haseley and Scott Kingery might be center fielders for now, but Odubel Herrera will replace one or both of them by the All-Star break. That remains to be seen. Good possibility. I wrote about that today at 973ESPN.com. That center field thing is far from over. We'll talk more about it with Frank. Number 7, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Zach Eflin will be the top pitching threesomes in the NL East. Remains to be seen. Rhys Hoskins, Gene Segura, Vince Velasquez, or Andrew McCutchen will be traded. Remains to be seen. Spencer Howard won't win a spot in the pitching rotation, but by the end of the year, he'll be in the rotation. That possibility because Howard's not up. And, of course, I said 87 and 75, so that remains to be seen. So all those are still up for grabs at this point. When we come back, we're answering your Phillies questions. If you have a Phillies question for Frank Close that you want answered when Frank joins me next, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. And Frank will answer your Phillies questions coming up on the other side. It's Frank Close's Phillies Mailbag, a Tuesday tradition here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Go to 973ESPN.com.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Got a bucket list? Okay, now imagine the list if you won the $152 million Mega Millions jackpot. Taking a mega chance could mean making your wildest dreams a reality. After all, anything can happen in Jersey.
On some models, excludes Corvette with GMF financing, excludes prior sales. See dealer for details. If you've been waiting for the best deal you can find on a brand new Chevy, then your wait has paid off big time. Right now, during Bennett Chevy's March Markdown event, you can save up to 25% off many of our most popular models. That's right. With Bennett Chevy's famous GM supplier employee pricing, plus you keeping all the rebates, that's up to a whopping 25% off MSRP. Plus, for a limited time, there's 0% financing available on our hottest Chevy models. Got an old beater? Get it to Bennett for an unbeatable $7,000 minimum towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. That's at least $7,000. Imagine what we'll pay for a good trade. And our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So buying at Bennett's always a pleasure with no need to negotiate. Plus, there's never any sales pressure. Get to Bennett Chevy during our March Markdown event and find new roads. Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You decided to upgrade your outdoor deck. So you ordered the essentials: a power washer, a set of patio chairs, and a shiny new grill. And you use your Bank of America Cash Rewards credit card, choosing to earn 3% cash back on online shopping and up to 5.25% as a preferred rewards member, which you put towards your most essential deck addition, a bird feeder. Apply for yours at bankofamerica.com/more rewarding. Copyright 2020 Bank of America Corporation.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
If you're in HR, you're probably wearing a lot of hats: recruiter, team builder, trainer, mediator, policymaker, and of course, paper pusher. But not anymore. Bamboo HR is the #1 HR software for small and medium businesses. It manages all your employee data easily and automates countless tasks, so you can focus on people, not paperwork. Bamboo HR frees you from spreadsheets, so you can do your real job, creating a great place to work. If the data shuffle and paperwork mountain have you ready to hang up all your hats, you're ready for Bamboo. If you handle HR records and paperwork, Bamboo HR is a dream. Let us free up your time and put your days of pushing paperwork behind you so you can focus on the people and making your company a great place to work for everyone. Try PC Magazine's top pick for HR software free today. Just go to bamboohr.com/panda. This is a limited offer only available to radio listeners at bamboohr.com/panda. That's bamboohr.com/panda.
Welcome back to the quickest podcast ever, brought to you by Kohl's. Today's topic, Easter. I'm ready to break out the bunny decor. Same. Kohl's has so many cute things. You can decorate pretty much everything, even Easter eggs. My family...
All right, Frank Close has the Phillies mailbag, 97.3 ESPN.com. Phillies insider Frank Close joins me on Tuesdays at this time as we take a look at this Phillies team. The roster is now set for Thursday's opener. We'll dive into that, your questions, and more with 97.3 ESPN.com Phillies insider Frank Close, who joins me right now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline just a couple of days from opening day. What's going on, Frank?
Not much, Mike. How are you?
All is well, man, and the decision was made last night by the Phillies. They kept a little suspense. I guess they had a little couple extra conversations, but finally we got the decision that you were on the whole time, that it would be Odubel Herrera going back to the minor league affiliate site, and that will be Adam Haseley and Roman Quinn getting the opening day roster. So I know you're not surprised, but what do you think went into the decision to send Herrera back?
I think it's two things, really. I mean, the first is he really didn't play all that well. He has 4 home runs, 4 solo home runs. But other than that, if you look at his spring, it's just kind of meh, right? I mean, he had batted .231. His defense never really was that great. He doesn't really have much of an arm, and I just don't see him being good enough to push the other guys out of the way who perform much better, who they're more invested in for the future. Certainly Adam Haseley, a first-round draft pick. He's under team control for years. You're not going to burn a year of his development just to squeeze Herrera on the roster for his last year of this contract, and that's money spent anyway. And on top of all that, you'd have to cut somebody in order to get Herrera onto the 40-man roster. And Dave Dombrowski in his career, he has really shown that he values that roster space, and I don't see him cutting a pitching prospect just so that he can find a way to get Herrera and his .231 batting average on the roster. I just don't see it.
So obviously it doesn't seem that this is the end of this. I mean, is there a way that he can find himself back on this roster? I mean, did they do this essentially? Now, Dombrowski said today that PR was not really a consideration here, that they really felt that, and I think you laid it out very well. I talked about this in the open today. The fans see 4 home runs and feel that means he was the best guy. .224 on base percentage. Quinn and Haseley both had much better on base numbers, hitting at the bottom of the order there. They're going to hit in the 8th spot most likely. The 4 home runs is what stood out for Herrera. The on-base percentage is what stood out for the other 2 guys. But I think Girardi mentioned it. Whoever's on the opening day, that doesn't mean you're on May 1st, June 1st, July 1st. So is this a way to say, look, we're going to go with you 2 guys. You earned it, but there's an all-star, a former all-star, waiting for his chance if you don't play well?
Odubel Herrera, the All-Star, is so far in the rear view that I just don't see it. I really, really don't see it. And I mean, he's going to have to go to AAA, and even when he goes to AAA, he's going to be playing in a corner, right? They're going to want Mickey Moniak to be in center field at AAA, right? So, I mean, they're going to want to see him develop. So he's going to be in one corner. Scott Kingery is probably in your other corner outfield spot. I don't know. I just don't see a path.
You don't think they'd say, Kingery, go play second base? You think they're going to continue to put him in the outfield?
I think he's got to be an outfielder for it to work. I mean, I know it's one of the questions coming up, and I want to give it all away, but yeah, I mean, I think Herrera is still kind of he really has no place. I mean, he's going to go to AAA. He'll be wherever he's going to be a guy that fills in wherever they need somebody at the moment. I don't know. I don't see that path forward. I really don't.
All right. Connor wants to know, now that Herrera didn't make the roster, who comes up first if Quinn, which is the most likely guy, or Hazley end up getting hurt?
Well, by the way, I have said for years that 1 year, I don't know if it'll be with the Phillies or not, but Roman Quinn's going to stay healthy and have a really, really good year. Maybe this is the year. Who knows? But yeah, I think that if they're confronted with an injury, it'll depend on how long this person's going to be out. I don't think you're going after Odubel Herrera if somebody is out for 2 weeks. You go with somebody who's on your 40-man roster, and that means that maybe it's Mickey Moniak. But it also could be someone like Nick Maton, who you might have noticed him a little bit in spring training, kind of as sort of a utility type, playing around the infield, and he can play some outfield too for you. So I think they're likely to grab somebody who's on the 40-man, bring him up for just a little bit, or come back. But then, if there's a long-term injury, well, then the discussion's much more difficult because Mickey Moniak is the one that you really want to see play. So if there's a path for Mickey Moniak to be playing on a regular basis, well, then you might want Mickey Moniak coming up to fill a long-term spot in center field. So I still really have a hard time figuring out where Herrera fits in all this. I feel like the Phillies said all the right things because they know that you can't double punish a guy, but I think the ship has long sailed. I think the Phillies have moved on, and they've spent the money already, and Herrera is going to be in the minor leagues until he's a free agent at the end of the year.
All right, Frank Close, of course, his Phillies mailbag every Tuesday during the Phillies season right here on 97.3 ESPN. We have a lot of people texting in, by the way, who have Phillies questions. I feel like there is some buzz for this Phillies team. Like, I feel like there is some legitimate expectations for the first time in a while. Brian wants to know, why would the Phillies only carry one lefty in the bullpen? Tony Watson got picked up, by the way, out in Anaheim. So there was a lefty that they had in their system. Jojo Romero, who pitched well, he did not make the opening day roster. They only went with Jose Alvarado in that bullpen. He's the only lefty that made it.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at this. I thought the moment that Tony Watson was told he wasn't going to make the roster and he opted out. And by the way, he only got $1 million from the Angels, even after the Phillies would have given him $3 million. But after he moved on, I thought for sure that meant that Jose Alvarado and Jojo Romero would be your lefties. And just trying to make sense of this, I can think of two things. One might be that the Phillies prefer the matchup of somebody like Sean Coonrod against the Atlanta Braves. Now, one thing about the Braves, after you get past Freddie Freeman, all their power guys are right-handed bats. Ronald Acuna Jr. is a righty. Marcell Ozuna is a righty. And their rookie, Christian Pache, he's a righty. So maybe they felt that this would be a better matchup to start. And maybe they felt that that one lefty will get you through Freddie Freeman in the late innings if you need it. But maybe Romero comes up pretty soon. Maybe by the second series against the Mets, maybe they make a swap out there. Maybe they're just trying to go right after the Braves this first season. But I think the other thing too is that with this 3-batter rule, you kind of lose that role of what they would call the loogie, the left-hander, one guy out. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have a guy coming in just to get one lefty batter out, and then you're on to the next reliever. So whoever comes in to pitch is going to face lefties and righties. And so maybe they figure that Archie Bradley, Brandon Kinsler, Hector Neris at the back innings, they're going to get lefties and righties out. So maybe you just need one lefty closer to the middle innings. I don't know. I still would have taken two personally, but we'll see what happens going forward. And by the way, Alvarado, of course, the day after he's named as sort of the only lefty, he gives up 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning.
Yeah, he's going to be interesting. I feel like he's going to be public enemy number one some nights and love the other. He's going to be a polarizing guy that people either love because he throws 100 miles an hour, a.k.a. he hits the home runs, and he's going to be hated because he doesn't know how to bunt down the third base line when there's a shift on. Like, that's the thing. Steve wants to know, Frank, do you feel the bullpen has drastically changed for the better since the last couple of years?
Well, it's got to be better than last year. I think that's really, I think that goes without saying.
Well, he's also going, the question from Steve, who's watching on Facebook. What's up, Steve? He's going back to some of Kapler's bullpens who were also not very good.
Yeah, the Phillies just haven't had the talent, and I will say the fatal flaw of Matt Klentak's career basically was his bullpen construction. I mean, I really, that goes to Matt Klentak. If you look over the last several years, he hasn't really given them much to work with. His acquisitions were always the high-priced veteran who can't stay healthy, the Pat Nesheks, the Tommy Hunters. I think that's a construction issue, and I think that really fell to the general manager. I really like that Dave Dombrowski brought in Brandon Kinsler, he brought in Archie Bradley. And when you talk about having 2 solid, reliable veteran pieces like that to add, I mean, that's a big deal, especially in those games that are close, that you go to those high impact guys. You feel like the Phillies have some options. Last year, I mean, not that Hector Neris was perfect, but the last couple of years, Neris has been the best reliever, but you often felt like he was the only one you had. So I think this is going to be much, much better than the last couple of years. And
Klentak essentially tried to do something similar where he brought in like these non-roster guys. The problem was none of them stuck.
No, well, I see. I put Kinsler in a different category. I never thought for a second that he wouldn't make this team, and I think there was kind of a behind the scenes handshake agreement like that, because he took less. He did not take a guarantee, but he took a little bit more money from the Phillies than the guarantee with the Marlins. So I'm pretty sure they said, "Oh yeah, you're probably going to make it," and he believed it. But Kinsler's a different category than 44-year-old Bud Norris last year. I don't know. I don't know how old he really was, but you know what I mean. Like the guys they brought in last year, they were so far past their expiration date. I don't think any of them were even in Major League camp this year that I even noticed. Right? I could probably name 5 guys that were those veterans.
The closer from the Nationals was in last year too. Who was that?
Drew Storen. I haven't heard of Drew Storen this year. I haven't heard of Bud Norris this year. I haven't heard of... But actually, the one I did hear about is Francisco Liriano, who pitched a perfect spring for the Blue Jays and then got released.
Standard. Oh, wow. He got released. Oh, he did. He opted out last year, though, didn't he?
Hard to say. Maybe it was a little bit of each.
All right. We got 2 minutes for this last one because this is an interesting... Gabby wants to know, what future does Scott Kingery have with the Phillies?
Well, they got to figure this out. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to.
Does he just stink?
I got to think he's got more talent than this. The one interesting story a couple days ago in the Inquirer about how he worked with an independent hitting consultant a couple of years ago, before 2017, before he got his money. Did that mess him up a little bit? I think what's going to happen is all the hitting coaches he's had, his independent hitting coach, he's got to hit. They got to figure out if he can hit more than the positions. He's kind of blocked at second base and shortstop the next 2 years. Didi signed for 2 years. Gene Segura signed for 2 more years. You have Bryson Stott, your top prospect, plays shortstop and second base. So he's got to get his bat to work. And the best thing I could think of is down at AAA, they just get the bat right and then figure out where to stick them. And it might be the outfield. Andrew McCutcheon's leaving as a free agent next year, so you have potentially 2 outfield positions to fill next year that they could look at. If there's a DH, maybe Bo move. I don't know. There's so much that could happen, but before they get to that,
they could
just got to get his bat right.
Try to trade Hoskins and then put Kingery in the infield, and I mean that's a lot of moving parts. If they value him, look, they gave him that contract. I know that GM's not in place anymore, but the organization valued what this kid brought, and I think that they just did him a disservice. I mean, moving him all over, tweaking his batting, styles. I mean, it just seems that maybe a fresh start for him, and maybe this minor league stint will do him well. Who knows?
Yeah, I think they're sending him there to help him, right? They could have made him a utility player and be the last guy off the bench like Ronald Torreyes is going to be and not really care. But, they have $6 million next year, $8 million the year after that. That's starter money. They got to find out if he can start for them. And really that's what this comes down to. They need to let him play every day. And that's a very expensive utility player if they conclude he can't.
Frank Close, always great. By the way, at Frank Close, follow him on Twitter. The mailbag every Tuesday right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And check out all his Phillies coverage at 97.3ESPN.com. Frank's Philly stuff, it's been the number one most read stuff on the website all week long. So it looks like the Phillies are a hot item this year, Frank.
I had better write some more, huh?
Back again on the Mailbag Tuesday. Get your questions in for Frank at Frank Close. Frank, great job as always, pal.
Great to talk to you, Mike.
All right, Frank Close, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline Sports Bash. Coming right back on the other side, betting tonight's games with Jeff Nadeau. All right, Sports Best Live 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, everybody? I'm Mike Gill as we take you till 6 o'clock tonight. The NCAA Tournament Elite Eight continues. Here to break it down with me to tell you how to win a couple bucks. Just a couple, man. Jeff Nadeau, our gambling betting expert. Good to see him. You know, it's always fun to get into we did the show, what was that, last 2 Thursdays ago. Man, this tournament comes zooming by, man. We did that show last Thursday. Last night I was out, and the guy says to me, man, that Jeff Nadeau you had on the show, he knows every player on every team in this tournament. I says, it's unbelievable, isn't it? How you doing, man? How you enjoying this tournament?
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it does go by so fast, Mike. I'm enjoying it, though. We missed it so much last year. And, Mike, there's something great about – what's great about life, Mike? You can always think about the future. There's always excitement coming. Next year we had the reprieve from fans, but next year we'll have fans again. I'll be at the Final Four next year. You better believe that. But I've been enjoying it.
The regionals next year in Philly.
Oh, that's right. Good call. So I'll be at that too. Good call, Mike.
Look at these things way in advance. You think I just ask the questions. I do the research too.
Yeah. No, and it's important to do that. I actually look occasionally at where the Final Four is for the next few years because some nights they'll have it in like Minneapolis or somewhere cold. So I kind of look for the hot venues. But
you know why I do it? Because they have first-round games a lot in Tampa, and I go to Clearwater for Philly spring training. So I try to line it up when the games are in Tampa.
Right.
I'll go down and watch the games. I've done it many times. West Virginia played Kentucky one year, and I went down to Tampa Bay's the hockey arena down, or whatever, the St. Pete Times Forum. It was called. Now I think it's called the Amway place, but we got
anybody that loves basketball. I would highly recommend before you die, go to a Final Four. It is a cool weekend. You got 2 games on Saturday, kind of got the off day on Sunday. Then Monday, it's the one game. And what's cool, Mike, is you sit in the same seats. So you kind of get to know people around you, and you see them Monday. It's a great time. It's a really fun city, wherever it is. They always have stuff. So I would recommend going.
I've never gone to Final Four. I've been to a couple first-round games. So I'll have to get to a Final Four at some point. All right, Jeff Nadeau, how to bet the NCAA Elite Eight games tonight. Let's get into the early game, USC Gonzaga. The Zags have not been challenged at all. This line opened at 9. It's 8.5. I feel like most people feel that they're just going to kind of waltz on through to the Final Four, over under 153.
And if they don't waltz all the way to the Final Four, Mike, you just kind of take it and say, okay, it is what it is. You look at this season for Gonzaga. Obviously, they haven't lost a game. In fact, they have won every game by double digits outside of that game against Mike Gill's West Virginia Mountaineers. That was the only game Gonzaga did not win by double digits. Now, Mike, anytime a number the night before comes out, I make sure I create my own number on what I would put the game at. I put this at like 11. The fact that it was 9 and I was at minus 105 with juice, I thought that was worth the play. I played the Gonzaga at minus 9. I just look at this matchup, and I have some real concerns about UCLA or USC. When you look at their three-point defense, Mike, it really lacks. This is a Gonzaga team that gets whatever shot they want. It really doesn't matter what defense you play. They're going to take it to you no matter what. The ball movement is unbelievable. They have kids that are backups that could play on teams of starters. They're elite, whether it's Suggs, Nembhard, Kispert, Timmy. I look at Timmy in this matchup, and I say to myself, we have one side with Timmy who's kind of that savvy pro almost. Then you have a kid in Mobley who is the young whippersnapper who is really good and really elite. But, I don't know if he's seen a big quite like this. I think Mark Few's smart enough to kind of get him in the right spots. And if you've looked at USC this year, Mike, they have struggled against teams with either competent, good bigs or physical bigs. Colorado beat them 3 times. Utah beat them already. Arizona beat them. So they are a team that I think can be beat. Getting to the rim is difficult, but Gonzaga can score in so many different ways. I think this is the end of the line. Gonzaga, as we know, also very good defensive team as well. I laid the 9. If they don't win by double digits, so be it.
8.5. It's down to across the board. Opened at 9. 8.5. If you jump on any of your apps right now. All right, the late game tonight. UCLA who's kind of a Cinderella, not kind of, they are a Cinderella 11. I feel like Tyus Edney should be playing for this team. Weren't they the 11 seed there? Taking on Michigan, opened at 7. It's now 6.5. That number, literally, as we're having this conversation, it just changed from 135.5. The light just blinked green on Action Network to 136. Someone must have put a sizable bet down to move that up there. But Michigan, 6.5. A lot of people feel that Michigan is playing the best ball right now. And I saw you tweet earlier. You want to see Gonzaga, Michigan.
I do. I think that would be the matchup of the season. Now, Mike, I will say, UCLA, I think you can make the case, are the best story in this tournament. People don't quite understand, like, Mick Cronin and the journey he's went on in his life and in basketball and where he is now. We also have to remember they have 2 players, their best players, in Jalen Hill and Chris Smith that haven't played really all season. So they've done this without some of their best players the entire year. They've had kids just step up and just get it done. They've shot the ball really well. But I have some real concerns about this matchup. First of which, it's a short prep time for Mick Cronin. This is a really elite and elaborate team in Michigan. You're going to have to play here. I don't know how Michigan doesn't feed the ball to Hunter Dickinson every time down the court, because UCLA just doesn't have the personnel, I think, to deal with him. He is so good around the rim. He's so good at passing out of double teams. And at freshman, he's so adept at doing that kind of stuff. It's really incredible. They just don't have, I think, the bigs to handle him. I look at this, the way their offense is just so meticulous and fun, the ball movement. I also think this is kind of a similar match to what Florida State was. Michigan had no trouble defensively against it. In fact, they were elite against the matchup. The good thing about UCLA is they're not long and lengthy as Florida State was. This game screams 71-59 to me. I think Michigan wins. I think they cover. I think both games, as well as both games last night, I laid the points in all 4 games, and I'm doing the same thing here.
So, like Michigan, 6.5, Zags, 8.5. There's from Jeff. We got one final 4 game. It's a battle of Texas, Waco, Baylor, 5-point favorite to open against Houston. So you got a 1 versus a 2. Over under 135. That went up a point.
Yeah, I grabbed the 5. I went the other way and kind of backed the dog here. I think the dog can win the game. I think Houston's really, really good. When you look at Houston, Mike,
defensively, they're stellar.
They are. They were the best team all year defensively. I think Loyola would be the only other team that you'd put right up there with them. I think Baylor has some major issues defensively, which were on display last night. They just don't make many adjustments. And this is a similar team, Houston, to what Arkansas was. The thing with Houston is they don't turn the ball over. They're an elite offensive rebounding team. And that is the issue here for Baylor, Mike. The reason Arkansas stayed in the game is because they had like 15 offensive rebounds. Houston is a significantly better team on the glass. Baylor just doesn't defensive rebound for some reason. And their issue is bigs. They don't have great bigs. I think these wing players, whether it's Giroux, whether it's Grimes, whether it's whoever, Sasser, they could all match up with Mitchell and Butler. I think, while very good, I think these are pretty good matches for Houston. They're going to have a week to prepare, which is helpful for Kelvin Sampson. Can they win? I hope they do. I have them to go to the national title game, and I have a future on them. It's my last big one, but I think the 5 is really valuable. I think Baylor is beatable. I really do. They're good, but they have cracks, and that was on display last night against Arkansas. Just couldn't make a shot for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know. They couldn't make any shots in the first 5 minutes either.
Yeah,
I mean, they were terrible early. That game looked like it was going to be blowout city.
But it was up and down, Mike. They allowed Arkansas to, rebound the basketball, a lot of open shots. And look, that was the worst officiated game of the season in the entire season.
Worse than the Baylor women's game?
Well, they were both bad. But, Mike, for a player to foul out with 14 minutes to go is a joke. I mean, that should never happen.
Criminal. Absolutely. No,
it's just,
the officiating's bad every single night. It's a shame. It's a shame. It really is.
No, it is, because it takes away. I think these officials have this superiority complex that people are there to watch them. There's no one on earth that watches basketball for officiating. There just isn't. It's really sad that they ruin the spectacle with this crap.
You got an NBA thought tonight?
Yeah, I think the Sixers have a lot of trouble with Jokic. I mean, this is a game where you need Embiid. They don't have Tony Bradley. Dwight Howard, I mean, is Dwight Howard going to get ejected yet again tonight? If he gets ejected tonight, Jokic might have 60. I mean, it's that simple. They're going to have to fight through this just because they don't have any depth. If Mike Scott is defend Jokic, it's game over.
Yeah, no bigs at all.
No, and keep in mind they had Aaron Gordon as well. This is a good basketball team. I actually am really considering getting in on the Nuggets. I think they have a real shot at kind of making some moves here. Jokic is the MVP. He's laying a price at this point. I worry for the Sixers. I've been highlighting this matchup. I'm going to look into the props on Jokic for sure.
All right. We will reconvene on Saturday for Final Four. Any MLB futures or Major League Baseball thought you want to throw out?
Yeah, I get more and more enamored with baseball. I bet it like kind of on a different level of basketball. Baseball for me is really about the price that I'm getting because we're not laying spreads, it's prices. I bet a lot of dogs, a lot of teams that you don't want to get involved with, but that the market undervalue. I mean, for instance, Mike, the Dodgers are laying over 300 on opening day. Like, that's crazy. As far as a team that I like, I think Toronto, if they can get past the fact that the country of Canada is so crazy with this virus thing where they can't play in Canada, if they can get through that, I think they're really good. I think their starting five, pitching-wise, is really good. Their lineup is full of just young power hitters and a bunch of guys from the Astros, basically. Two teams I like in the AL are the Blue Jays and, obviously going back to the well with the Astros. I think they're back this year. They have obviously a Verlander. So, yeah, I'm pretty high. I'm excited about the MLB. I think there's going to be some real opportunities to back dogs. Excited about the Phillies. Excited about baseball. It'll be good to have it back. Feels like a normal year for baseball again.
Yeah, you're going to have fans there on Thursday for opening day with the Phils. So that'll be nice. Yeah, I know. It should be a little different. I was just down in Clearwater, and it was very nice.
Yeah, well, it's way nicer there than it is here, though it is getting better around here. But yeah, I'm excited. I think the Phillies are a really interesting team this year, just with the big issue is the rotation, Mike. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. I'll still go to the fact of last year, they should have brought in Dallas Keuchel. That was an opportunity to bring a left-handed pitcher in here, a number 2 or 3. They've got a good group, Wheeler and Nola, but adding that third starter, is Velasquez going to be it? I don't trust him. I don't really trust Spencer Howard. So I don't love the rotation.
You doing a hoops betting hour tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll be back. We're taking the Hoops betting hour through the end of the tournament. The last show will be Monday. What we do from then, I don't know. I was contracted till the end of March with that. We'll get into some NBA tomorrow with Ski Profit, and it's been a fun month, and been enjoying the college hoops, and it's already winding down, Mike, as they say.
Crazy. All right. We got Elite Eight tonight at 7, followed by the Sixers at 9 here on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff likes the Zags -8.5, Michigan -6.5, and Denver tonight. Big night for Jokic. Find a Jokic prop there for you and probably hit the over on that because he probably will have about 40 against the undermanned 76ers. Jeff Nadeau's back Saturday morning for the best of the Sports Bash when we look at the Final Four. We'll tell you how to bet that. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the boardwalk.
Can I say one last thing, Mike?
Go for it.
I want to shout out at your old partner, Hunter. I heard him the other day on the radio. He's doing a nice job. He's a talented kid, and seems like a part of your lineage. So you're really kind of the maestro at this point, just grooming young broadcasters.
Spewing my opinions?
Maybe. He's done a nice job. You do a great job, though, Mike, as always. Good stuff.
Thank you, my man. We will talk on Saturday.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Jeff Nadeau, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, when we come back, we've got plenty more to get into. Mark Jackson's going to talk a little Sixers with us as we go inside the Sixers with Mark Jackson from Sixers pre- and post-game live on NBC Sports Philadelphia. You just heard what Jeff said about the problems they might have tonight. Obviously, if Joel Embiid's out for a long period of time. But when will they get him back? And what will the team look like with him in the lineup and George Hill? We'll ask former NBA big man Mark Jackson next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan, the all-new Matt Blatt Nissan. Now open, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, online, mattblattnissan.com. All right, 3:21, time for Inside the Sixers. Mark Jackson, NBC Sports Philadelphia. Sixers pre- and post-game live, set to join us right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Sixers and Nuggets tonight. This one could be interesting with Jokic against maybe Mike Scott for a couple of runs. I don't know how the Sixers are going to figure out a way to defend him. Maybe Mark Jackson can figure it out for us as he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Sixers Nuggets tonight, 9 o'clock. You can hear the game on 97.3 ESPN and watch the coverage from NBC Sports Philadelphia. What's going on, Mark? How are you, pal?
I'm outstanding. How are you?
Well, everything's good, and I know that if you take a look at this game tonight with Jokic against, Mike Scott got to start at center the other night. This could be an epic night for him. The Sixers are going to have their hands full with him tonight.
Absolutely. I think he's been destroying the league, having an MVP-type season. And now we're throwing Mike Scott in the 6'6" stretch 4. I think he's licking his chops, man. He really is.
Yeah, I don't know how they figure out a way. I mean, do you go zone? Is that what you do tonight? You figure out, like, you play a little zone or something? I mean, what do you do in a game when you're kind of undermanned? I mean, Doc said it the other day. We had 4 centers 2 weeks ago. Now we have 1 center on the team. I mean, is this a night where you got to get creative?
It is. Don't be surprised if Coach Stu throw the zone out there, but the only problem with that is Denver has so many shooters. And when you have your point guard being a 7'1" center in Jokic, he just sees over the defense versus zoning, and he's easier for him to make passes. So the zone will not be as effective because he's primarily their point guard compared to other teams they play. So we might play that, but it'd be very briefly. And then the ability for him to pass the ball out of the double team. So even if you double him when he's on the post, you know, he's just so great, and they're so good at running their sets and their slashes and getting opportunities. It's very difficult. But it's going to be a tough task. But on the other end, Denver is not the best defensive team. So since they're not the best defensive team, it's really important that we attack them offensively and make them guard.
You know, Mark, Joel Embiid, it looks like should be back, I guess, this weekend. That's the way it kind of sounded from Doc Rivers, is that, hey, we got to get a couple more games without him. But how do you think they have fared without him, and what did you learn about them playing without him?
I learned that they can score. I learned that the depth on a chart is not bad at all. I learned that they have a lot of chemistry. So with those things being said, it's so important to understand, like, this is an opportunity for them guys to build confidence in themselves, and they did build confidence in themselves. And the 76ers, to me, have shown that they are not just a 3 seed or a 4 seed or mediocre seed. They show that they're a real deal, that they don't need to rely on just Joel Embiid, Tobias, or Ben Simmons. They have other people that can fill some gaps, that can get things done. I think that's what they showed me during this phase.
Yeah, I know. I guess people were still like, I don't know if I can buy into them or not. I mean, did that run without him kind of tell you that they are a legitimate finals contender?
100%. You're able to win those games and with that against those teams in that kind of way, and then almost beat the Clippers with the limited bench and guys once again displaying, like, look, we're not the Sixers bench of the old. We're the Sixers bench that can play. Personnel is better, and I think they showed us that 100%. And a lot of people are taking note, like, man, this team is for real. Like, believe it or not, I really believe deep down that's why Daryl Morey didn't pull the gun and go for something big, because he didn't want to give up his young guns. Because the young guns showed that they could play, not just only be fill-ins, but actually play and contribute.
It's interesting. That leads us to George Hill and how you feel that he will fit in on this team. I find him to be an interesting kind of a combo guard, can handle. He shoots it pretty well, but I don't think he's getting enough credit for what he brings defensively. And that's what the story was for me, that Morey saw him as a defensive player and how he could fit in against a team like, Brooklyn.
Exactly. First of all, nobody's stopping Kyrie, but we do have a couple of elements that can help us slow him down. So now, why people are not talking about George Hill as much, because he's not Kyle Lowry. So you didn't get the Kyle Lowry, but you got some other parts. So he's still not Kyle Lowry. So God, people are saying it's like, okay, yeah, he's a good player, but he's not Kyle. So, and I think that had a lot to do with people's mindset and why people are not overly enthusiastic about the move. But I'm telling you, George Hill brings a lot of those same qualities that Kyle Lowry could bring. He's a defender. He's tough. He's a ball distributor. He can shoot the ball. He is going to fill in very well with this Sixers organization.
Mark,
and most importantly, it gives a chance to move Shake Milton to the 2-guard spot.
Yep, I was just going to follow up to that. Do you see him kind of doing the ball handling, moving Shake off the ball, and what does that mean for Shake's game, that he doesn't have to be the primary ball handler with that second unit?
Listen, it's not a lot of James Harden in the world. It has not been a lot of James Harden and Nate Archibald. There's not a lot of them that can lead the league in scoring and have the ability to be a playmaker for their team. Let me tell you, that's a heavy burden to have, and Shake is still young. So now with that being said, you move George Hill into that point guard role with the road second unit, and you move Shake to the 2, it releases tension. It makes things easier for him to do what he has to do, and that's to get buckets. So expect his scoring average to go up 3 to 4 points per game. 3 to 4 points per game, and also make it a lot easier, more effective.
I think one question that everybody, and we won't have the answer to this question, but I'd love to get your opinion, is this is a different Tobias Harris. But most people are like, you know what? I'll believe it when I see it in the playoffs. Are you ready to say, I don't need to see it in the playoffs? This guy's different.
He is different. And Tobias is different. That extra motivation. In life, you need some motivation every now and then to kind of jumpstart your engine. And not being named All-Star, and then, ironically, after not being named All-Star, then you get a couple of games against a guy who got in, Julius Randle, that you feel as though you should have been in over. You talking about I'm motivated? Now I'm facing a guy who got in over me? Oh, this is personal for me. So it's like a blessing in disguise for the 76ers because it forces Tobias to prove his worth again. He had to prove his worth over years of being a good player. He had to prove his worth to try to make an all-star. A lot of people thought as though he should. So now it's just give him more motivation to come out and destroy guys in front of him.
The interesting conversation I feel like is kind of leading us down this path is the Sixers defensively against Brooklyn and what they have firepower-wise. How do you feel after the trade deadline Philly matches up with Brooklyn?
I think we match up well. Okay, we mentioned Blake. We mentioned Marcus Aldridge. They brought in some pretty good veteran players. They're not in their prime. Let's just say that. They're not in their prime, which means what's the best? The first thing to go is defensive capability. And either one of those guys were defenders as it was. So now being late in their career, it's going to handicap them more. So, yes, the Nets can score a ton of points with Kevin KD, Kyle Lowry, James Harden, and Irving. They're going to score a lot of points. But can they defend? The 76ers style of play, the ability to add the shooters they added is a plus. But then most importantly, they can defend. That's the plus that they have over the Nets, the ability to shut people down or make it hard for them to score. And then you have a mismatched nightmare. Joel Embiid cannot be stopped on the offensive side of the court. And defensively, he is probably the best perimeter big man in the league, which means you switch. Kyrie, okay, no problem. You're not going by a Joe Smo. You got a real defender that can guard you for a few seconds on a perimeter. So I think that gets to me. That's a big plus for the Sixers.
I'm interested, too, because I feel like Milwaukee got off to that slow start and people were kind of like, but this is a team that has been playing so far out in front the last couple of years. And I wonder if they have reshifted their focus from a regular season mindset to say, hey, look, maybe we, push the pedal to the metal a little too hard in that 82-game slate. Do you see a different mindset and a different Bucks team and maybe a better Bucks team?
Are they better? I believe that. When they added Drew Holiday, I was like, oh, man, they're a lot better. But watching them throughout this season, I think they're still struggling with chemistry. But I do not forget, and I would never underestimate the value of Drew Holiday. Listen, Drew Holiday is a special two-way player. He's underrated for a lot of portion of his career, but everybody has taken notes and admitted and openly said, I did not know he was this good offensively. I did not know he was this great defensively. You look whoever they play, no matter who they play, Drew Holiday's on them. You on Jokic? Oh, you got him, Drew. You going LeBron? You got him, Drew. You going Joel? You got him, Drew. I mean, they have so much confidence in Drew Holiday to slow people down. He's just valuable. But chemistry is important. They're still not at the best. They didn't reach their peak, but they reached their peak getting towards close to the end of the regular season. But the Sixers will too.
I'm interested to get your thought then. We talk about Hill and what he brings defensively. Do you see scenarios, the most likely scenario, Mark, is that a guy like Hill and maybe Thibault are called on to close out games, and maybe Curry and Green are called on to start games?
I love that. That's a great idea. Now you have a lot of tools in your toolbox to mess around with. Who are we guarding? 2-3 minutes left. You need to stop. Come on, Matisse. Come on, George. Get in there. You got many tools in the toolbox you can play around with, and it's at Doc's disposal. Listen, Steph Curry, Danny Green, to me, they still have not matched their stride yet. They still haven't reached a thing where they have consistently good shooting games together. Steph Curry will get off, Danny Green will struggle. Danny Green will get off, Steph Curry will struggle. They still have not reached their peak together. And that's going to come, I truly believe that. But when you got other guys you can plug in for them, and a good thing, I want you to think about this. Think about years past, even when we thought Sixers made it make the 10th. When you put your rotation guys in, our defense shrunk, our offense, like went at a snail's pace. Now you added guys that not just keep you afloat, but they can make a run. So it's a lot of things that's going on in that Sixers locker room organization as far as personnel that is all for the better of the team.
Mark Jackson, it's the Sixers and the Nuggets tonight, by the way. You can listen to the action right here on 97.3 ESPN or watch all the action on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Is there another team in the East? Miami, Boston's got all sorts of problems. I don't know. I mean, I guess Charlotte would be the 4 team right now, but is there anybody else, or do you think this is Miami's the defending Eastern Conference champs. Atlanta's played a lot better since they made the coaching change. Boston, I guess, can get things put together, but is this a 3-team race in the East, or is there somebody else?
I think it's a 3-team race, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Pacers start making a run to improve their ball club and to be able to be a challenger in the East. But listen, in the beginning of the season, I made a thing and I said Miami will not do as well. And I also said the Boston will not do as well. And people say, oh, you're nuts. And I told you what I said comes true. I'm a mind reader and I know the future. But I'm telling you, the Pacers are going to make a run late into the season now that they got LeVert healthy.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's so off base. I'm a little surprised at Charlotte if they'll hang in there without Ball, if they'll see them. And the Knicks have hung in there. Can they make a push over the second half and hang in there? They're the 5 seed right now. So it seems that, you mentioned a 3-team race. Miami, though, at the deadline, their actions said we're trying to be in this thing. So we'll see if they can get back into this thing. And Boston's just been a total mess this whole way. So we'll see. But right now, Philly is the number 1 seed. They've held on to it all the way through, even without Joel Embiid. They expect to have him back maybe this weekend, and we'll see when George Hill is out there. We'll see Mark Jackson and the crew throughout the NBA season. NBC Sports Philadelphia, Sixers and Nuggets tonight. And, of course, you can check out all the action on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Mark, it's always a pleasure, buddy.
Good talking to y'all guys. Have a good night.
All right, Mark Jackson, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And, of course, he just mentioned it. I thought he made a great point about the fact that the Sixers, what he found out about this team without Joel Embiid is they can score. They don't have to just go to Joel Embiid to be the scorer at all times. They're scoring the basketball without him. Now, who's going to take the big shot in the big moment? Well, it's been Tobias Harris, right? He has filled that role without Joel Embiid. And look, he's done it with Joel Embiid. They've gone to Tobias Harris in spots. He says he's buying Tobias Harris. Are you? Run out of time before the playoffs. 609-403-0973. Hey, I want to tell you about my friends over at PropSwap. We just talked to Jeff Nadeau. It's a great opportunity to PropSwap right now. Why? We're in the Elite Eight. We're down to final 6 teams. 2 got eliminated last night. How about buying a ticket for one of the teams that are in the Final 4? Houston, Baylor, and then trying to sell that ticket as soon as those lines come out for the final 4 games. You get the best odds in the country. That's the way it works. You get those odds now. That betting ticket right now, it's -5. Houston, Baylor, one of those teams is most likely going to be a long shot. One of those teams, I would imagine Houston, if the Final Four is Gonzaga, Michigan, Houston, Baylor, Houston would probably have the longest odds. But as Jeff said, he likes the underdog in that game. So buy that ticket now, and then when the odds all come out, you can sell it at PropSwap.com, make a little money before the game even tips off. It's the best odds in the country at PropSwap.com. 3:41 on the Sports Bash. Mike Gill with you till 6. Hope you're having a great day. And, of course, if you're not, well, I'll try to brighten it by telling you this. It's going to be more football in 2021. I don't even know that that's universally liked, even if you love football. Do you like the fact that they're adding a 17th game to the mix? The owners have officially approved a 17-game season, and it starts this year. It's not like, hey, we'll wait a year, let everybody kind of get their footing under them. Nope. 17-game season starts now. 3 preseason games, 17 regular season games. So what does it mean? How does it all work? This is going to be interesting. It starts now. The vote came in today. The owners voted. They laid the groundwork when the TV partners signed their new deals that this was going to happen. So the season will start at the same time, but it will now end later. The Super Bowl was scheduled for February 6th. It is now expected to be played 1 week later on February the 12th, which unfortunately for the people out there, I know there's always this groundswell of people who want that to be a holiday on Monday, and the next week after February 13th, I already looked, is not President's Day weekend. President's Day weekend is actually the following Monday, the 19th. So the season is expected to start on the traditional Thursday night, the 9th, but they pushed everything back 1 extra week. So now the Super Bowl will be played on February 13th instead of February the 6th. So now you'll be nice and hungover on Valentine's Day there, buddy. Hey, honey, are we going out to dinner tonight? I'm kind of struggling from the Super Bowl last night. By the way, Valentine's Day is on a Monday. Start preparing for that. But that's the way they're going to do it. They're going to start the season the same week, September 9th. Now, I wonder when they're going to start the preseason. Are they going to start that at the same time and then take a week off? Or 2 weeks off? Because they're only playing 3 games. There is not 2 bye weeks, by the way. It's a 17-game regular season that's going to be played in 18 weeks. So everybody still gets only 1 bye. See, if you did the 2 byes, you could have gave us the Super Bowl on President's Day weekend, and then everybody would have been off on Monday. That's the way they should have done it. Give everybody the 2 byes to coincide with the President's Day weekend. That's a fail. So the preseason is going to shrink. So in this scenario, the Hall of Fame preseason game, I don't know if they're going to play that. Like, that's typically like that first week of August or like the late July. You have that one random game on like a Thursday night. And some teams, 2 teams get stuck playing 5 preseason games. I wonder if somebody's going to get stuck. Oh, no, it says an exception will be made for the 2 teams that play in the annual Hall of Fame preseason game. So those 2 teams will have to play, because it says the CBA, the number of teams in a season shall not exceed 20, except for the 2 teams will be an exception for the 2 teams in the Hall of Fame preseason game. So they'll have to play the Hall of Fame preseason game and then 3 other exhibition games. Oh, man, those teams have got to hate that opportunity, that possibility of being – now, that doesn't really matter. They're not playing any real players in that game anyway. But it does not state when they're going to start the preseason, whether they're going to start it at the same time they used to or 1 week later. So this is official. This is in the books. The players cannot fight this, although guys like Alvin Kamara and others have talked about how dumb this idea is. Now, here's the thing. The players are getting more money. The players' share of the league revenue was 48%. That is now going up to, I think it will, the new TV deals represent a 60% revenue increase over the old ones. The player share of revenue increases to 48.5%. So they're getting from 47% to 48.5%. So the impact of these TV deals has really driven not only more money, but a whole nother game. It shows you the immense power of sports, mainly the NFL. For all these people, I'll never watch the NFL again. That's a shame for you. These television networks have one show on television, one show on TV that they could air that you can't DVR. You have to sit and watch live. And it's the NFL. It's football. It's, in other words, if you have a business and you are not tied to the NFL, your business is less significant than it can be. If you have a business and you say, look, I have advertising money, I need to advertise my business, and I have to calculate because I have a very fixed advertising budget. You have one answer to how to use that money. Football. That's it. If you say, look, I saved all this money up to advertise, I have to make sure it works. You do football. That's it. You don't do the home show. You don't do some concert that's coming into town. You do football. That's how you capitalize your advertising dollar. That's it. I don't care what your business is. You could be selling bridal gowns. If the bridal gown store is advertising one time a year, it should be football. That's it. It's the only thing that anybody should consider if you only have one opportunity to advertise. That's it. It's the NFL. And guess what? That's why this is happening. Because the television stations can't get anybody else to advertise. They had to add more football. Why? Because they're making a killing. Because smart business owners know the way to make money is to advertise my business on football. I get these businesses that the business owners tell me, I'll never attach my name to football again. That's your fault. Tell me how that's going for your business. Because I know that every other business that attaches their name to football, they win. Nowhere says, I don't love a 17th game. Don't hate it, but don't love it. Love the competitiveness of each game, that each game matters. Don't want to keep going up. Also, see more injuries. The injury thing, no question. Look, I would think like saying that there's another game would make you be like, this is great. For whatever reason, I don't feel that way. I'm not like, oh, yeah, another game. By the end of the season, sometimes, you know what ends up happening is right around the time of when the NFL season gets to Thanksgiving. It's when you start to get distracted. And you got Thanksgiving, and then Christmas starts to come around, and the season starts to kind of get lost in the sauce sometimes. And it's not because you want it to get lost in the sauce. It's just life happens and the relatives are in and this person's staying for a week and I got to get ready for that. I got to do Christmas shopping. I only have one day to do it. All this stuff happens. And your team, like this year, the Eagles, I mean, you're 4-9-1 at one point. Those last couple games, can you imagine imagine the last game they played against Washington or Dallas on, what was it, the Giants they played on that last Sunday night football game of the year? And then having to watch another one, right? Can you imagine that? You play that game against the Giants, which, by the way, aren't you happy they lost that game now? Well, you probably don't like the trade because you don't like Roseman. This is a weird dynamic here. You should like the trade, but you can't like the trade because you don't like the guy who made the trade. So it's a really weird dynamic here. Like you're thinking about this. I really like the trade, but I can't say I like the trade because I don't like the guy who made the trade. So instead of saying I like the trade, you just will say, well, the guy will mess it up anyway. It's a way to get around saying I want to give the guy credit for the trade that I actually like. It was a good trade. I had a guy email me today, tell me he didn't like the trade because they didn't feel the Eagles got enough. And the point he made was, well, San Francisco got 3 picks, or who got the 3 pick? Miami got 3 picks to move up 3 spots. And I said, well, yeah, but they moved up 3 spots. This team moved up to number 3. The other team moved up to number 6. You're not going to get the same value for number 6. You got a first-round pick to move up to number 6, not to number 3. You like the trade. You just don't want to admit you like the trade because you don't like who made the trade. That's the big catch here. Here's an interesting point. Nowhere's watching on YouTube. It says, one thing I haven't heard about the trade yet. What if the Dolphins stink next year? Unlikely, but Tua is far from proven and injury prone. If he has a down year, could be a high pick. There's no guarantee that the Dolphins are making the play. They didn't make the playoffs this year. What's to suggest that they're going to make the playoffs this coming year? You got Buffalo. You've got New England, who's going to be better. I can't say that the Jets are going to be a playoff team, but they should be better. I mean, heck, they got Joe Douglas. He's the greatest football mind of all time. That's tongue-in-cheek. But the Jets will be better. But there's no guarantee that Miami is making the playoffs at all. And if they don't make the playoffs, you're at least in the middle of the pack. So the way it works, the NFL schedule, it won't be out for a couple of more weeks, but the Eagles will play the Jets. The way that they do it is whoever finished in last place in the NFC East, you'll play the AFC East. So you'll play the last place team in the AFC East. The NFC North teams, they'll play the team that finished in the same place in the AFC West. The South will play the South, and the West will play the North. Why are they doing? Oh, I guess because those teams were probably matched up in their crossover games this year. That would be my guess. So the NFC North would be like Packers against Chiefs. The AFC East will play the NFC. So whoever finished first in the East will be Buffalo against Washington. So Buffalo, Washington is the crossover. That's the 17th game. So you're going to get an extra home game. Half the league's team will play 9 home games. The other half will only play 8 home games. Not really fair, by the way. But to maintain some level of equity, this is from ESPN.com, the owners have proposed a system under which one conference's teams will get the extra home game one season, and the other conference teams will get the extra home game the next season. So 1 year, if the NFC team plays the AFC team, that game will always be at the NFC place. The following year, it'll flip. And I would imagine that those teams, see, I wonder if it's going to constantly be the crossover game will be the East against the East. And look, now when you're talking about things, it's no longer 7-9, 8-8, 10-6. Like they're always your kind of like your high water marks. It's 11-5, 10-6, 8-8. You don't have that anymore. There's no more 500 teams. You're not 500 anymore. Nobody's 500. Jeff Fisher is out. So maybe we'll get an 18th game sometime in the future. How many years has it been since they last changed the schedule? I mean, my whole life, it's been 16 games. This is kind of groundbreaking, to be honest. And it happened today. They voted on it. It is in. The owners have approved a 17-game schedule, the first time since 1978 that the schedule has been altered. It went from 14 to 16, and now it's 17 games in the NFL. All right, when we come back, speaking of the NFL, it's football at 4. It's coming up next. Andrew DiCecco's thoughts on the Eagles at 12. All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Dr. Lyle M. Back. Everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery, go to ilovelyle.com or call 856-MAKEOVER for Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco is in the house today. I'm excited for this because obviously since the last time we talked to Andrew, the Eagles have made a trade. He is a big draft nut, studies the draft, obviously covers the Eagles, so this will be right in his wheelhouse as the Eagles have moved to number 12. We bring Andrew DiCecco in to the Boardwalk Honda hotline here on the Sports Bash. What's going on, Andrew?
Mike, I'm doing well. How are you?
We know that the draft is something that is right up your alley, so we'll fire out with that. Howie Roseman makes a trade. They were at number 6. They move back to number 12. Do you like it in terms of making that move from what they could have gotten and what will now be available to them?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously that signifies, one, the compensation was too much for them to pass up, and two, they had a player on their board that they had ranked fairly high, right in that 12 to 15 range. I believe on your show, I mentioned that there's guys like a Quiddy Pay from Michigan. J.C. Horn's now going to be in the conversation with Caleb Farley going through that back procedure. He's going to drop down a little bit there. So I think J.C. Horn becomes a second corner. He'll be in play, possibly Jalen Waddle at 12. So, I mean, they're going to have some options and obviously they had some of these players rated very high and know that they can get them there. So, I mean, yeah, there's going to be a drop-off somewhat after that in the draft. Unlike most drafts where the talent's kind of dispersed evenly throughout the first round, there's a considerable drop-off there. So that's pretty much the furthest that they could afford to go without sacrificing a big drop-off in talent.
I was going to say, so 12, how is the dip in talent from 6 to 12?
Well, I mean, then you're looking at your second edge rusher in Quiddy Pay. You know, Russo's the top guy. I mean, and he's not even cemented as the top guy. He still has a lot to prove. He has the freakish size and athleticism, but he's only really played one season, and because he didn't show a lot of a pass rush repertoire, and he still has to grow into his body. So he's not necessarily a top guy, the top guy, bona fide. But I mean, you're looking at Surtain. It could be a preference. Surtain could be available at 12 if a team falls in love with J.C. Horn. But you're looking at your second corner more than likely. But you're still finding a starting player, a plug-and-play guy that can step right in and contribute right away as a rookie. So I mean, yeah, you're certainly not going to get your Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, but you're still going to get a building block player that's going to be able to be a plug-and-play option.
All right, I want to bring this up to you because you just brought up you're not going to get Jamar Chase or you're not going to get Kyle Pitts. I saw a mock draft, CBS Sports, so it's somewhat reputable site here. It's not like it was Jim's basement mock draft here that had Kyle Pitts going to Philadelphia at number 12. Do you see a scenario where that happens?
And it's kind of hard for me to envision that happening, considering his skill set, what he can bring to the table. A team like the Atlanta Falcons to me seems like a desirable destination for him. I think they're going to be intrigued by his ability to kind of add that component to their offense. There's so many teams that would just have to look past that. And he's the head and shoulders above every other tight end here, and he's not just a tight end as we've outlined on your show. So I mean, it's really difficult for me to envision him tumbling down to 12. That's a complete oversight and negligence by so many teams.
Let me show you how he got there, and you can kind of stop me when you disagree. Trevor Lawrence 1, Zach Wilson 2, Mac Jones 3.
Whoa. Mac Jones in the top 10. That's
well, there's a lot of people that think the 49ers traded up to target Mac Jones, right?
Yeah, I've heard that. I just don't know if I necessarily believe that. I don't think that Mac Jones is anywhere close to the ceiling than a Trey Lance, for example. I think Trey Lance is head and shoulders above Mac Jones, so it'd be hard for me to envision him. I see Mac Jones as more of a late first round guy. So to see him go at 3, it would be I would be shocked for one.
All right, so there's one. 4, Atlanta, Penei Sewell. All right. 5, Cincinnati, Rashawn Slater. Makes sense?
That's a little high. That's a little high. But I thought he'd be another guy that would be in play at 12, but continue.
All right. Jalen Waddle, number 6 to Miami.
Okay.
Jamar Chase, number 7 to Detroit. Justin Fields, number 8 to Carolina. Micah Parsons, number 9 to Denver. Patrick Surtain, number 10 to Dallas. Elijah Vera Tucker, number 11, New York Football Giants. Kyle Pitts.
He's another guy that I don't necessarily know goes in that top 12 range. So there's two guys that I could foresee, going in, 12 to 15, but not necessarily in that high. That'd be a little rich for my blood.
Okay, Kyle Pitts, number 12 to Philadelphia. Now, the interesting part is, I might agree with you, but Devonta Smith, 13, Kwity Paye, 14, Trey Lance, 15, J.C. Horn, 16. So those are some guys that are going behind 12 that might move themselves ahead of 12.
Yeah, I mean, Devontae Smith certainly somebody that I think him and Jalen Waddle are going to go right around the same spot. I have both players as top 10 guys on my draft board. I actually prefer Jalen Waddle over Devontae Smith, but I think that they would be top 10 guys. So I was surprised to see Devontae Smith kind of omitted from that group. But who knows? I mean, you see all different types of mock drafts.
Absolutely.
The draft goes a million different directions that we nobody really anticipates. So it's going to be interesting, Mike, nonetheless, to see how this kind of shakes out. I mean, if Kyle Pitts falls to the Eagles at 12, I mean, that's a no-brainer, and that would be a tremendous steal for the Eagles. I just don't see that happening.
Oh, I mean, Andrew, if Kyle Pitts falls to 12, this might be the greatest trade in history.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. By far.
All right, so let's look at a couple other things here. By the way, so they move back 6 spots. They get a first-round pick next year. They also add a 4th-round pick in this year's draft. Did you like the value that they got?
Yes, because there's going to be some players that I really like that the Eagles can address some serious areas of need in that mid-round where you can still find some early contributors like a Jalen Twyman, the defensive tackle from Pitt, who I think that would add can immediately step in and be that third defensive tackle on the Eagles rotation there, and he provides a pass rush. So I mean, and you can find corners in that area that can step in and play. A Thomas Brown from Oregon. So I mean, they're going to get some value there, and they're not going to necessarily have to select a developmental guy that's going to ride the pine or not really contribute until year 2.
I know at 6th, if Sewell was there, you were a fan of that. Would you be interested in one of the other linemen, Vera Tucker, Slater, if they're there at 12? Are you as high on those two as you were Penei Sewell?
Penei Sewell is so dominant that it's kind of hard to compare anyone to him. But, Mike, what I would say is Slater would be enticing at 12, given his versatility, and the Eagles need to continue to add young players on the offensive line. I stand by my stance on that. He would be the one guy that I would give some strong consideration to if I'm the Eagles front office. But I think at 12 they should be looking at a Kwity Paye to bolster that defensive end room. That when you look at it under a microscope, Brandon Graham's getting long in the tooth. Derek Barnett has been an enigma this far into his career. And Josh Sweat's a little limited in the snaps that he's able to accumulate due to his past injury history. So when you look at that, and Vinny Curry is a free agent. So, I mean, when you look at those things, I think that needs to be addressed. And J.C. Horn at a corner would be another guy that I would consider to be a strong play at 12.
Yeah, I like him at 12 too. If Waddle or Smith are at 12, is this a home run trade too? I mean, if one of those two guys is there at 12 and you land that, is that something that you'd say this is a home run?
Yeah, and that is something that I could foresee happening. I could see a Jalen Waddle tumbling down to 12 And that would be a home run. Devontae Smith as well, but like I was saying, I'm particularly high on Waddle when I'm looking at both Alabama wide receivers.
Last year in the draft, you had Ruggs, you had Jerry Jeudy. By the way, Ruggs was the first one taken at number 12. I would imagine that the wide receivers go before that, but Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk. You had that group of guys go in the first round. Is that group deeper, better, or this year's first round guys?
I like last year's group better. I think that was just a historic class that's going to be very hard to top. That said, this is going to give it a run for their money. This class right here, just even in that top group alone, you're going to get a lot of guys that are going to be stepping in and be valuable contributors as rookies. So I do think that it's deep here, but I think that 13 or 14 wide receivers went in the first 2 rounds last year, which is unprecedented, and I think that that's going to be certainly hard to top. So I give the edge to the 2020 draft.
Right. Now, last year, like Ruggs was the first one taken. He did not have a great year. Jeudy had a solid year. He wasn't great. CeeDee Lamb, solid year. Reagor obviously had all sorts of injuries. Jefferson was a beast. Ayuk was probably the second. Actually, you could make a case that T. Higgins was the second best guy from last year's class. So I guess the point of this is moving from 6 to 12, just because you don't take the first wide receiver doesn't mean you might not get the better one.
Oh, absolutely. And you outlined that nicely, Mike. I mean, you look at T. Higgins, and T. Higgins was an afterthought at this time last year, and he stepped in right away.
And don't forget Chase Claypool.
Chase Claypool. Well, the Eagles fans know all about Chase Claypool. I mean, but T. Higgins was someone that was overlooked throughout the whole draft process. Didn't really flash any sort of flashy intangibles, but he was just a solid overall football player, and he kind of gave the Bengals what a newer version of AJ Green, what they had there. So I mean, these type of players, Rashad Bateman's going to be somebody that's going to rise and probably be a come off the board very early on day 2. So there's a ton of receivers here that get Elijah Moore. It's all a matter of what your flavor is and what your preference and what your need really is. But there's going to have all shapes and sizes of talent there. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this class.
All right. Initial thought when they got 12 is this is the guy that, if you had a guy at 6 that, hey, I really hope they get this guy at 6 or like this fit. Now at 12, in your mind of who will be there at 12 is the best player available for this team?
The best player available, I would say, would be Jalen Waddle, or I would say J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn, to me, and I believe I put this out on Twitter even 3 months ago, I said when it's all said and done, when the dust settles, it wouldn't surprise me if J.C. Horn becomes the top corner in this class. And that very feasibly could happen if another team prefers his skill set and ceiling and upside over the more polished and refined, but less, kind of less flashy, so to speak, the Patrick Surtain. And I mean, I think right there, that would be great value. You're getting a day 1 starter on the boundary. And I really like what he brings to the table. He has that alpha mentality that a lot of the premier corners like the Jalen Ramseys really have. And I think that would be a great home run pick at 12.
Anthony Harris, they signed last week. So Gannon, the new defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, did that signing, kind of give you a glimpse of what kind of defense that he may employ this year?
No, not really. I mean, he provided another veteran back end player that can kind of help implement his system a little easier to some of the younger players, the younger contingent. I think he's going to be a solid complement to Rodney McLeod, a good veteran. He is a playmaker. He can make plays on the football. He didn't really do that last year, but like we talked about, I believe it was last week, Minnesota's pass rush, and there's a lot of other variables that contributed to his down year, but he's an all-around safety. So I think the great thing about him is that he'll be able to mold his defense around him or Rodney because they have such a versatile skill set. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what he does with his defense because I mean, he kind of, and that's another reason why I think they're going to take a defensive back pretty high, knowing his defensive back pedigree. And it'll be interesting to see. I think that the cool thing about this year is that all the defensive backs have some size to them, aside all the premier ones except for Asante Samuel Jr. And he's had some success with these bigger guys like the Xavier Rhodes and the Rocky Sims. So he's going to have his pick.
Talking with Andrew DiCecco, Football 4, a couple more for him. If you look at Gannon, if we're staying on the defensive side, the linebackers he's had to work with in the past. Now, he was a secondary guy, but Darius Leonard, Anthony Barr, I mean, he's worked with some pretty interesting linebackers there. In round 2, the Eagles have a high pick in the second round. I know I talked to Moshe about Micah Parsons, and he just laughs. There's no way they're taking a linebacker with that 12th pick or even the 6th pick, and I guess Micah Parsons was the guy that we both were kind of insinuating. So he says no shot in round 1. But if that that second round pick, is there a guy at linebacker in the second round that makes sense at 37?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Bolton from Missouri, and I would also say Browning from Ohio State. Browning, to me, he's got the prototypical size, he's got the athleticism, he has the coverage acumen that really will translate to the current landscape of the NFL, where you really have to have you have to be a cover linebacker first, the run defender second, and to keep up with today's all these movable pieces and spread offenses and things like that. I think for matchup purposes, he's a guy that I actually listed in a Q&A that I did for InsideTheBirds.com, him being one of the players that I thought would be ready to step in day one and take on a contributing role. Elijah Molden, the defensive back from Washington, being another one. But yeah, I think Browning, for what the Eagles need, he's a more polished version, a far more polished version of what they thought they were getting in Davion Taylor last year, and he has more size.
That's I like the fact Baron Browning from Ohio State. He would be a guy that would interest me there as well. Nick Bolton, I think I don't know. I think I would like Browning a little bit better for what you mentioned with his athleticism and the way he covers. Do you think Sean Bradley or Davion Taylor factor in at all in the linebacking role this year?
I do not, and I just think that when they took Sean Bradley, Mike, my initial thought was he's going to be a core special teamer. I saw a sharp, heady football player, physical, knows his assignments, very diligent in that area. But that said, he has his limitations, and I thought that his ceiling was always going to be a sub-package player. I never really saw him as a starting linebacker in the NFL. Davion Taylor, to me, was always a project. I had a 4th-round grade on him. I thought that a team would be enamored with his athleticism, and they were. But I thought he had a long way to go as a pro. He had to refine a lot of areas in his game. A lot of the plays that he made were instinctual rather than it was more so just him running around like his hair was on fire, rather than seeing the play develop, knowing his keys and everything that he was responsible for. And I still think that he's another year away. He's this full off season, but I think he's still a year away from being a contributor for the Eagles team.
For a guy like you, Andrew, you know the draft well, you know the guys in the deep rounds well. But when I say the Eagles have 4 of the top 84 picks, how valuable is that?
Oh, I mean, it's exactly what they need. I think they should stay with all of their draft picks and start expediting the youth movement and get the young players in here and go through the growing pains with them, Mike, because they're not in position to really win anything now. They really need to start to build this thing from the ground up. And by the time that they're able to see, it's probably going to be a 3-year rebuild. By the time that they do that, all these young players are going to be ready they should be hitting their peak and being able to propel the Eagles to being one of the bona fide teams in the NFL. And a serious playoff contender. So I think that you're going to have to go through the growing pains early on. But I mean, having those top 84, having so many of those picks in the top 84 is incredibly valuable, because there's a lot of high end talent that the Eagles really need to capitalize on and nail all their picks, because they have a lot of areas obviously of need, but there's going to be plenty of opportunities for them to address it.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, of course, InsideTheBirds.com, and he, like all guests, appear via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Football at 4, a lot of draft conversation between now and the April 29 draft. The Eagles have now 11 picks, most in the NFL. And as Mo said yesterday, don't discount the possibility of them moving back up. They have 12. Could they go with all that ammunition, get themselves into a spot like, hey, if there's a player they really want at number 8, 9, can they jump over Dallas? I think it's really interesting that Dallas, New York, and Philly are all boom, boom, boom in that first round there. So that should be fun on draft night. We'll continue to have it covered with Andrew here during Football at 4. He's back on Thursday. Moshe's back tomorrow as Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Andrew.
You bet.
All right. Football at 4 is brought to you by Dr. Lyle M. Back. Everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery. Go to ilovelyle.back.com. And, of course, 856 Makeover for the call to Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco, great job on the draft, and can't wait to continue to have draft conversation with him on that and all draft stuff. By the way, next Tuesday, right here on the Sports Bash, ESPN's Mike Tannenbaum, the former GM of the New York Jets, will talk a little draft with us as well. So as the draft gets closer, we will continue to have it covered here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I like Brian in Ocean City. Birds will be 8-8-1. That's pretty funny, right? The Birds. I said nobody could go 500 anymore. You got this 17-game season. You go at 8-8-1. There you go. If the Eagles go 8-8-1 next year, I think that would be a success, don't you? For most people out there, coming off a 4-11-1 season. All right, coming up. By the way, this hour of the show brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how. Go to PropSwap.com or download the Prop Swap app today. That Prop Swap's fantastic. It's a super smart idea. I hope you guys are checking it out and making money with it. All right, when we come back here on the Sports Bash, you know, the NFL draft is a month away, but there is craziness going on. I'll tell you why. And you just heard Andrew's reaction to something I said that stood out to me. Next. This hour brought to you by Prop Swap. Go to PropSwap.com. Mike Gill with you. What's up? Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. So, thanks to DiCecco, by the way. I love talking draft with DiCecco because he's very smart when it comes to the draft. He says a lot of interesting things, and I loved his reaction when I told him that this mock draft had Mac Jones going to 3. Can we get his reaction? Do we have that audio? His reaction was great when I said Mac Jones 3. He was like perplexed. And I talk about this a lot, that these teams make trades that make me scratch my head. Now, if the San Francisco 49ers make a trade, they decide at number 3 they need a quarterback. You're telling me you think Mac Jones is the difference maker. He's going to win you the Super Bowl that Jimmy Garoppolo could not win you. It really makes me scratch my head. These teams constantly chase this ghost that doesn't exist. This franchise quarterback. We all want Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. There's a reason there's only a handful of those guys that come around every once in a while. And if you look at it, Tom Brady, who, by the way, nobody was talking about this time of the year back in 2000, the 2000 draft. I guess he was drafted in the 2000 draft, this rookie season, 2000. So he's drafted in 2000. Okay. It wasn't until Aaron Rodgers got drafted 5 years later, and then Patrick Mahomes. You had Manning, Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes. Every other quarterback in between there is not worth trading for your whole farm. Yeah, Eli Manning won a couple Super Bowls. Ben Roethlisberger won a couple Super Bowls. That's it. Eli Manning is not worth trading your entire lot of picks to go get. I'm not even sure Ben Roethlisberger is. Yeah, if you told me I traded up and got Patrick Mahomes in hindsight, my point in hindsight here, has any quarterback been worth trading what San Francisco traded? And there's like a handful of them. Rodgers, who has only won one Super Bowl, by the way, as great as Aaron Rodgers is, he's only won one Super Bowl. So people are going to go bonkers to try to trade for these quarterbacks. Last night, Emery Hunt, who covers the NFL draft, was on Game Night with Josh. And people are making trades to go get Fields, Wilson, and others. The Eagles' current quarterback is Jalen Hurts. How does Jalen Hurts differ from Justin Fields?
Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts, they have the same type of mental makeup. They have that assassin mentality, that killer mentality that you want at the position. Those guys, to me, are guys that don't get rattled. They don't get, frazzled by the situation. They're able to play through any type of adversity. And that is something that's a key trait to any quarterback. You want that type of player on your team.
I have that type of player on my team. I drafted him in the second round last year. What am I trading boatloads of picks for to try to attain these guys? Emory Hunt, game night last night, talks about Hurts and Fields and Wilson.
He's more along the lines of, Justin Fields. They're about the same type of guy. I have a slightly higher grade on Zach Wilson, but Jalen Hurts is right there, right behind him.
Right there, right behind him. Zach Wilson's going to be the second pick in the draft. He's going to be the second pick in the draft, most likely. And this is Emory Hunt, who covers the NFL draft, says I have Hurts ranked slightly right behind him. Jalen Hurts he's talking about. And these teams are making trades to go get these guys. It's either these guys are way overrated or we're way undervaluing what Jalen Hurts brings to this Philadelphia Eagles organization. Right? Either these guys are way overrated or we're not rating the guy in our own backyard good enough. Emory Hunt last night on game night.
So we saw Justin Fields do it. We've seen Hurts do it at multiple schools and programs. We saw him do it last year in games with the Eagles. So if you have that trait, to me, you're already ahead of the game.
Sounds like Emory Hunt likes Jalen Hurts. So two things again. By the way, DiCecco's reaction to when I said Mac Jones was the third pick in this gentleman's mock draft was great. Mac Jones 3.
Whoa. Mac Jones in the top 10. That's
well, there's a lot of people that think the 49ers traded up to target Mac Jones, right?
Yeah, I've heard that. I just don't know if I necessarily believe that.
That was DiCecco. Whoa. That was great. Look, to me, I think Emory is, and Emory's great, by the way, very, does a great job covering the draft. Very well connected, played the game, knows these guys really well. I think he's right on the money with this. I have Jalen Hurts, and I said this before. So just because I agree with Emory Hunt, and the fact that he thinks the way I do, look, I said this before. Jalen Hurts, to me, is in the same class as some of these guys. From what I saw from Justin Fields, I don't say exponentially better than what I already have. He might be slightly better than Hurts. I'm not saying he's not slightly better. I don't think he's exponentially better, which means I can't trade. I got to see. I was on vacation when this trade happened, so I don't have it like fixated in the top of my head what San Francisco actually gave up and where they went, what the whole situation was. But according to Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network, quote, everything you hear points to Alabama quarterback to the 49ers at number 3. Now, they have this whole thing going on. ESPN wrote this whole article inside the whole trade, and it seemed like the 49ers were being very candid about the whole situation. And that, hey, Garoppolo's the guy until he's not. But here's the thing. They traded multiple first-round picks. Let me get the actual trade up here. Let me find this thing. All right. The 49ers acquired the number 3 overall pick from the Dolphins in exchange for the number 12 pick. So they went from 12 to 3. And in that trade, they got a 2021 third-round pick, a first-round pick in 22 and 23. So they got 2 first-rounders and a third-rounder. They gave up 2 first-round picks, one next year and the year after. They flipped this year. So they didn't really give up 3 first-round picks. They just flipped and then took the next 2. Yeah, I don't like the 49ers moved up 9 spots to go get a quarterback, essentially. That is not much better than the guy you already have. I'm not saying, look, you end up with Mac Jones, and maybe he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe he is. Is he significantly better? That's the question. Are you going from Jimmy Garoppolo to Aaron Rodgers? Are you going from Jimmy Garoppolo to Drew Brees? Are you going from Jimmy Garoppolo to Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes? No. Zach Wilson at number 2, to me, Emory Hunt nails it. They're not much different than Jalen Hurts that you got in the second round a year ago. Dan from EHT, have the Eagles ever had a Hall of Fame quarterback? Not one that's in. Few teams have, by the way. It's not that many of them that walk planet Earth, let alone multiple guys in your own organization. Although there's some argument for Randall Cunningham being in for what he did. Donovan McNabb, borderline guy. That's neither here nor there. Ryan Gaskell, what's up, Gas Man, is watching on Facebook. Who was the last number 1 QB who was worth giving up the farm for? Well, number 1 overall would probably be Peyton Manning. When you talk about a number 1 pick in the draft, is that what your question is, or a first-round pick? I think you say last number 1 QB. Because the last quarterback that's worth giving up the farm for, I guess you would just say Mahomes, but he wasn't the number 1 overall pick. I can't think of a quarterback playing other than Mahomes. I love Russell Wilson. I'm not giving up the farm. When you say the farm, I mean, I would give up. I take that back. I would give up what the 49ers get. I'm talking about the fact that he's already established. I would give that up for Russell Wilson. I wouldn't have given that up to draft Russell Wilson. That would be preposterous. Russell Wilson, by the way, went in the 3rd round. Sports Bash brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's guys that I know they're and by the way, Aaron Rodgers went 20 in the 26th. So you're talking about the number 1 overall pick. Who would you have traded up for to go get? Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Jamarcus Russell, what's his name? Sam Bradford, Baker Mayfield, Cam Newton. None of them guys. Jameis Winston. None of these guys are worth giving up what the 49ers gave up to move up to go get. They're just not worth it. I mean, the 49ers to make that trade is asinine. It's clearly asinine. You've lost that deal unless Mac Jones turns into Tom Brady. Yeah, who's Sam Brady? Unless he turns into Tom Brady, you have lost that trade. Back with more. Sports Bash is live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live at 97.3ESPN.com. So we're talking a little draft and the quarterbacks in this draft. I think I've said this for a while. I would have given Jalen Hurts the opportunity to show what he can do. And I think the Eagles are going to do that. I'd be pretty shocked by now. The only way I see them drafting a quarterback is if there's a quarterback that they love and the guy starts to fall and they decide we can move back in. And then I guess that would be Zach Wilson if you listen to some of these reports, which I don't necessarily even agree with. But here's what Greg Cosell said on Inside the Draft. It's a new part of the Inside the Birds family. They're doing a new show called Inside the Draft with Greg Cosell from NFL Films. Here's what he said today on the Inside the Draft podcast.
A quarterback coach I know extremely well who's been in the league for 25 years told me that he thought that Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts were very similar prospects coming out of college.
Now, I said that about a month ago, and I stand by that, and it's validated by now Emory Hunt and Greg Cosell and a player, a executive in the league, a quarterback coach in the league. Jalen Hurts can play. That's what we're finding out here from people who are watching the tape. And what I said from watching Fields, I got to admit, I have not seen Trey Lance, so I'm not going to touch what I know of Trey Lance because it's nothing. I have never seen him play a game, and I haven't watched him yet because I don't feel that the Eagles would be interested in taking him, so I really don't feel like wasting an hour of my Saturday watching Trey Lance. So I'm not going to get into Trey Lance. I'll be candid, and like what I'll do is I'll watch guys that I didn't watch a lot of during the season. I see certain guys throughout the course of a year, and I want to watch more of them. Like I saw Kyle Pitts play in like 3 games this year. That's not a big enough sample size for me to formulate an opinion on whether or not I think he could play or not. So I watch, I'll take an hour on a Saturday and watch Kyle Pitts. And I'll do that with a bunch of different guys that I have interest in for Philadelphia. Trey Lance isn't one of them. Justin Fields, Kyle Wilson, those two would be into the mix because they're the rumors that the Eagles had some interest in Kyle Wilson. Now, I saw Wilson play a bunch this year. BYU was on TV in primetime a lot. They had a lot of high-profile games this year because they were a top 10 undefeated team at one point. So I saw Kyle Wilson play this year probably live in a game. Now, not live and in person, live on television about 4 or 5 times. I never left like, whoa, this guy is the number 2 pick in the draft. I have said a month ago, I think Jalen Hurts is, and my point isn't that he's better than these guys, is that these guys aren't significantly better to trade the farm for. Like Wilson might be marginally better, Fields might be marginally better, but I think Hurts and Fields would be like saying that Watson and Wilson, one is better than the other. I'll take both of them. You want to give me Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson? I don't care which one you think's better. I'll take them both. Same situation here. Fields might be better than Hurts, but I don't think it's so drastic that I wouldn't take either one of them. I'll take both. You want to give me Fields? I'll take them. But I'd much rather stay with Hurts because I don't think there's a big difference.
So the 2 things I learned here so far is, number 1, I waste my Saturdays compared to you. And number 2,
you waste them compared to me? You feel that watching 1 hour of a prospect play is...
Well, no, you say you don't watch guys unless the Eagles have a chance to get them, whereas apparently I'm the guy who does. So,
well, I mean, are you watching the 8th quarterback on tape?
Well, it depends who the 8th quarterback is. If it's Jamie Carroll, I go back to 2019. I kind of have to.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at in the first round and then, positions of need. So I'll take a look at, I haven't got to corners really yet. I've been watching wide receivers. So wide receivers is a spot when they were at 6 that I started to say, all right, I'm going to start watching, Bateman and Tony, but mostly the main guys, Smith, Waddle. Bateman would be more second round. Tony, I don't think he'd be there in the 37. He might be, but I would imagine he's going to be a first round pick.
I think Bateman is somewhere. He's going to be somewhere between 20 and 40 because it depends
Bateman,
on.
But I'm talking about Tony.
Tony Tony's weird because it really depends on what you think of him. You think that Tony is a guy that is just a wide receiver? Is he a guy that can play multiple receiver positions?
I mean, that's a good question.
Because remember, in Florida, he functioned as a number 2.
Because he's playing at a place where Pitts was. He had guys playing.
Right. And because Pitts was not always playing a specific position, it put Tony in these weird positions. So when you see them line up and you see him run some of those Z routes and some of those traditional Y routes or those in outs, you're wondering, well, is he really out of the slot, out of the Y? Where does he line up in the formation?
Yeah, I mean, he would almost be akin to like Justin Jefferson the year before, where Jefferson was thought of this slot guy, but he had to play the slot because they had Chase, but he was really more than a slot guy, but he played the slot because of the personnel they had where he went to college.
Like, for example, I could see a team, and they're not there in the 20s per se, but a team like the 49ers, that team would make sense for him because the 49ers would play him anywhere. Whereas if you're a team like, let's say...
Who? Tony.
They're
not taking him at 3.
No, but I meant like if the 49ers were in like the 20s, like they would be a team that'd be like, we could use that guy.
Fine.
But if you're a team, for example, like the Cardinals, you don't really have a need for a guy like that. So would you ever consider drafting him? So
I disagree. I think the Cardinals could use another receiver.
Okay, so you're saying that you don't think that they have right now.
Well, if you paired him up with Kirk and Hopkins.
They just signed AJ Green.
They did
they
sign
have Larry
AJ
Fitzgerald.
Green. Well, Fitzgerald's not.
They have Isabella.
They didn't officially sign Fitzgerald.
He's hanging around.
Well, they're not. Hasn't quote unquote retired yet,
and he hasn't really. Is it either way? Yeah, but they also.
I forgot about AJ Green, but I thought forgetting about AJ Green, Kirk and Hopkins and Tony, because Tony would be in a similar situation where you have Kirk and Hopkins, and Tony could be used in multiple different ways.
Right, and now with AJ Green, you got. Well, I don't know. Is AJ Green the slot guy? I don't know at this point, but that'll be interesting. But anyway, so there are some teams I just don't know if they're going to look at Tony and be like, do we really need this guy? Because Tony to me feels like a play now more than later guy.
Tony to me almost feels like last year when you had all of the top guys, right? You had Judy, Ruggs, and CeeDee Lamb.
Yep.
They were the 3.
The big 3.
And then there was Jefferson was the next guy. It feels like Tony is Jefferson. He's the drop-off guy who maybe is better than the other 3.
Yeah, I don't know. It's subjective. I mean, to me,
at this time last year, how many people felt that Jefferson was going to be better than all 3 of those guys?
Well, he had better stats, but I also think he's going to have a better career. Like, I think still that one of those other 3 guys is going to have a better career than Jefferson. Just remember, a guy has a great rookie year doesn't mean that much.
Absolutely. But at this point right now, you would say if you were redrafting those guys based on one season, Jefferson probably would be the highest pick. T. Higgins maybe a second. Chase Claypool could be 3rd. Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb might be 4th and 5th.
Right. Claypool looks like a monster right now. He looks like he's going to have an amazing career.
And by the way, I wrote this down too. I meant to ask DiCecco about, but Mooney from the Bears had a nice season, and Davis on Buffalo had a good season. And those guys were 5th-round picks. One was 4th, one was 5th.
And
they both had better seasons than Ruggs.
Right. And back to Tony. Personally, if you were to ask me who I would rather have, I'd rather have Bateman over Tony, personally.
I said the same thing. I think of the next group of guys that I've watched, Bateman would be my favorite. Of the group of guys that are not those top 4,
right?
Bateman is my next guy.
I love the way he attacked the ball. I watched a lot of Minnesota games this year, and there were games that he
watched a lot of them last year.
Single-handedly kept them.
I thought he was better almost last year than this year.
He put up better stats but there was obviously inconsistency with the offense because of COVID and all that stuff. But the way he attacked,
they were a better team last year too.
Yeah.
All right, definitely on the other side, it's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT is here. Want to get his reaction on the Flyers waiving Shane Gossisbehere. What does he think it means? Plus, opening day for the Phillies is here. Expectations from the PT and The Eagles have traded to number 12. You heard what he said on Happy Hour Friday. You'll get his feelings on Tuesday with Thompson next. All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live at 97.3ESPN.com. Pete Thompson. It's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT is here at the PT973. Give him a follow. And, of course, he, like all guests, appears via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. This 5 o'clock hour of the show is brought to you by John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer. Get yours online at deere.com. All right, we got to get into this because I'm sure that Pete Thompson saw this news today and said, whoa, in Pete Thompson fashion, and was wondering, trying to put the pieces together, PT. I actually opened the show today. How many times have I opened the show with the Flyers? But I thought Shane Gossisbehere being waived today. What's the message? How do you read into this? And how surprised were you when you saw that tweet from the Philadelphia Flyers official account today?
Yeah, I was very surprised. You can hear me okay? I sound okay? You're not yeah, it's all good?
Yep.
Okay. I was shocked, to be honest with you, because they've been trying to give this guy away for years and nobody wants him. And you're not going to expose a guy if you don't have some ulterior plan or something else down the line. So my initial thing was, whoa, they're sending a message to the rest of the room. We're not getting it done. But then the second thing I thought was, well, wait a second. If you're trying to clear a guy up for cap space and trying to bring somebody else in, okay, that makes a little more sense. Now, of course, they think that he's going to clear through waivers, but no way. You saw the Florida defenseman got injured the other night, and he's from Florida, Shane Gossisbehere is, so he could easily go back down there if that's the move that they're going to make. I mean, somebody out there, I think, can use him as a defenseman. It's not one of those things where I think he passes through every single team and they're like, okay, no problem. That's fine. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what that corresponding move's going to be yet, but there are defensemen out there, Ekblom from Nashville, David Savard from Columbus. There's guys that they might be able to pick up, and they clearly need help. I mean, it's goals against versus goals for. It's a very simple formula. The Flyers are absolutely getting destroyed in that margin. It's almost like, when we do who's in, who's out, Gil, during football season, we always sit there. I know that's one of your big criteria. You sit there and look at how many points have been scored against, how many points are they scoring, and then you determine whether or not they're a very good football team or not. Well, the Flyers are not a very good hockey team, as evidenced by last night, where only the fact that they were playing an even worse hockey team saved them to be able to win that hockey game.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. They're down 3-0. I see everybody, no fight, no jam, no juice, whatever you want to say. All your former coaches who you once liked and then wanted to be fired at one point, all their phrases. But what changed in the game, and did what change make you feel like, okay, this is a jumping off point? Or was it fool's gold that they came back last night and won that game?
Fool's gold to me. And, I heard somebody say today that instead of momentum, instead of Sam Moran scores his first NHL goal the other day against the Rangers. And legitimately so, the whole team jumped into his arms. They were excited for him. They were happy for him. Everybody out there was pleased that Sam Moran, because all the injuries he's had to fight through and everything he's had to do to get to that point. Did they carry any of that momentum into Buffalo? Absolutely not. Zero. So I heard somebody say it's more like a sugar rush than a building block. And I thought, wow, that is a great analogy. That little high that you get after you eat something sweet and then you're done. You crash. I mean, this team can't sustain success. And part of the reason is they can't keep the puck out of their own net, including the fact, by the way, we haven't even gotten to the fact that their starting franchise goalie has been told, you're not going to play in either of these games in Buffalo. You didn't play last night. You're not going to play tonight. You just work with Kim Dillabaugh, the goalie coach, on getting yourself right. That's Carter Hart I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was going to get to that because essentially they basically sent him home and said, don't even come with us. You're going to go and figure this out. I mean, I thought the most telling thing was, Peter, that the coach said he needs to work harder. It's essentially what Doug Peterson said about Travis Fulgham. Fulgham got all these great accolades for 4 weeks, and then the Flyers the the fans were saying, hey, what happened to this guy Fulgham? He was doing great. He was the best receiver in football for 4 weeks. And then Doug Peterson said, well, maybe he needs to work a little harder in practice. I mean, did Carter Hart start getting a little full of himself?
Well, and it certainly scares me to see the article that Sam Carchidi wrote about that he's parted ways with his sports psychologist and confidant. Wait a second. That was the key to your success the entire time, a sports psychologist? You don't have that guy, and all of a sudden you can't stop the puck?
There was a lot made that he went to this sports psychologist at a very young age, and that people were giving him credit that he admitted, like that he would express himself and talk about these things that people at that young of an age don't typically do.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, they talk about sports being mental, 90% of it. And yeah, he had known this guy since he was in grammar school in Alberta, Canada. So, I mean, he worked with him the whole time. And, how much of that has been a factor in this season? And look, whatever reason they parted ways, clearly they're not working together anymore. So then the question becomes, can he get himself right? And that scares the ever-living Jesus out of me. I don't want to see a Steve Mason situation again. Are you telling me that the guy that you finally thought was going to be your franchise goalie all of a sudden is ruined because his mental guy isn't there to comfort him? Oh boy.
I think it's a great concern considering the numbers that he put up his first couple of years. He's at 4 goals against. I mean, you could be in goal and, give up 4 goals against. I mean, 4 goals against is you wouldn't start if you were playing for the old Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies.
No doubt. And to be clear, he did go on the trip. He's just not, there's no chance of him playing on this trip. He's working. He's doing extra work with Kim Dillabaugh, who's the Flyers goalie coach. It's Alex Lyon sitting on the bench. Brian Elliott starting both games. So 3 games without playing, a little bit of work with Coach Dillabaugh to try and figure out angles or get himself more mentally straight. And we'll see if that reset does the job.
I don't know. I mean, to me, we talked to Durso yesterday about all this situation, trade deadline, yada, yada, where they're at. I look at it like this. I'm not sitting here telling you I think Giroux stinks. I'm not sitting here telling you that I think he's a problem. I'm just saying this is Groundhog's Day. They have relied on the same group of guys, my God, since, you've worked here 3 times. And the first time you worked here, we talked about, you can't trade Giroux. He's got a no trade. Giroux, Voracek, Couturier, they don't stink. They're not bad, but they're just good enough to make you good, not great. Kevin Hayes, nice player, but he's like a repackaged version of Wayne Simmons. Yeah, he's a guy who gets the dirty goals. He muck and grinds and yada, yada. They've gone with the same formula on the offensive side for years. The defense is horrible, and the goaltending, which last year, let's be honest, we were excited about this team for one reason, and it wasn't Claude Giroux, and it wasn't anybody else. It was because of Carter Hart. That's why you felt different about last year's team, because of Carter Hart, not because of Claude Giroux, not because of Jake Voracek or Sean Couturier or anybody else. It was because of Carter Hart. And if he's a failure, this team is just average again. That's it. They went from good to great because of one guy. That's it.
Try and think about times that they've led hockey games, too. They led Washington on March 7th. They were up 1-0. They lost 3-1. They led at the Rangers on March 15th, but then they had to go to overtime to win 5-4. Every other game in the month of March, 4-9-1, and they're awful in the first period. How many times, you talk about Groundhog Day and deja vu, how many times can you come out and not have a strong tempo from the start and not have, and yeah, you have to put that on the veteran leadership. Giroux is the captain. He's a part of that. Jake Voracek, but there's other guys that aren't playing well right now. Travis Konechny hasn't done much. You mentioned Kevin Hayes. He was the big free agent signing last year. He has not been strong. It quite frankly, the defensemen have regressed. Phil Myers is not what they thought he was going to be. Travis Sanheim, when you see games, Gil, and I know you were gone for this, but when they lose 9-0 on St. Patrick's Day, and it's Oscar Lindblom is the only guy to have an attitude and drop the mitts, that's a problem. I don't know if that comes from the coach, if that comes in the room. Somewhere along the way, these guys are playing not scared, but without enough of an identity or an anger. And there's nobody that's afraid of them. Even the Devils, even the Rangers, even the Sabres. It doesn't matter. They're like, oh, great, the Flyers, we got a chance. Shouldn't be that way.
I'll say this, and I know a lot of people, like they got to fight, they got to show more passion, they got to show more heart. To me, this team is no different than the team that was what they were last year, and that was a team that didn't fight, wasn't this physical team. They had a great goaltender, and they were a good team. The great goaltender made them go from just a good team to a great team. They were a great team last year. They weren't an elite team. They were a very good team. Probably not great, very good. But that they didn't fight. They weren't physical. They didn't do all the things that they're lacking this year. They had tremendous goaltending. It's the same team.
Minus Matt Niskanen. And that's a big reason why they've given up more goals than they've been able to score. They're sort of the same team, so they don't have that finisher, that dynamic scorer, that unbelievable player, that sniper. They also don't have speed. They don't have a lot of speed. Connecting's their fastest guy. Speed kills. When you have somebody like that can outskate everybody and is elusive and all over the ice, that sends people into fits because then they draw penalties or they're out of position. But the biggest problem to me is they don't play with an attitude. I've seen so many goals this season where there's guys that just walk right in and score, and neither of the defensemen pick them up, or neither of the forwards even give the defenseman a heads up. Hey, this guy's coming. You have to have your head on a swivel on the ice, and too many of the Flyers seem to almost be afraid of contact too. I understand that you can't drop them. It's not the Broad Street Bullies. You can't drop the gloves and just pound the guy into submission. I get that. You can't Dave Brown the guy, what Dave Brown did to Thomas Sandstrom back in the day, which is a two-hander, take the stick, and he almost took Sandstrom's head off. You can't do that. But thank God, Samuel Morin, believe it or not, he's one of the nicer guys on the team. And when he went after the Rangers player the other night, I think it was Lemieux, right? And that's Claude Lemieux's son, by the way, for any of you lifer hockey fans. When he went after him, he got a fine. He got fined $3,000. You know how excited guys are that Samuel Morin did with a little attitude and that he scored his first NHL goal? They passed the hat, Gil. They passed the hat around the locker room and said, let's pay Sammy's fine, because they make more money than him, and they paid us $3,000 because they were so happy to see somebody step up and take an attitude.
Yeah, I know that this team is it's unbelievable. Last year at this point, they were the most exciting team in town. Now I guess they're fourth on the depth chart.
Yeah, I mean, I've had multiple times, and I'm a lifetime. This is like literally my first love. And I am multiple times this season playing Trivia Crack on my phone while the game is going on with audio in the background only, texting someone while the game is going on in the background, doing my alt route homework for teacher training while the game is going. I mean, it's become the secondary thing that you leave on the stove and don't let the pot boil over, as opposed to I'm glued in, I'm watching, I'm actively paying attention.
All right, Pete Thompson. It's a Tuesday with Thompson here. The PT joins us every Tuesday. Have a little fun. Let's flip it around. So the Flyers were obviously that move to let go of Gossisbehere. Very interesting today. We'll see. A lot of people think that means they're clearing space out to make a bigger move. We'll see what happens there. The move on Friday that Howie Roseman made.
Yeah, way to not be in town when like the big bomb drops. I know your phone lit up, or you weren't around. At least you weren't on the radio. You don't consult with me about your time off, and that's fine. But here I was. Somebody came up to me at school. I can tell you that easily peasily. 2:00, guy runs up to me at school and says, "What do you think about the Eagles trade?" And I said, "What Eagles trade?" God, there are times, Gil, where I hate that I don't do a 4-hour show with you on a regular basis. It used to be that I'd find out about that instantly when that stuff happened, and it would break while we were on the air. And that would have broke right as your show was starting at 2:00 on Friday. What do I think about it? Holy crap, holy cow, holy wow. And my initial reaction was anger, because I thought there's Howie trying to prove he's the smartest guy in the room again. But the more that I paused and I started to reflect a little bit, the more that I understand the math behind it and the logistics behind it. You make that move now. You can't wait until you get close to the draft to make a move like that. You have to make that move instantly as stuff is happening and try to, I think they can get somebody talented at 12. I don't think it's going to be Pitts. And thanks to you, I fell in love with Pitts after I did more research on the guy. I don't think it's going to be that shiny player, that shiny object that all the Eagles fans want. But they got a lot of problems, and I don't know if you noticed, but today the league approved that they're going to add another game, right? So there's going to be 17 games instead of a 16-game regular season. 6 key Eagles are 30 years old or more. You need more players, more talent, younger players, better players, and not just one. One shiny piece is not going to fix the Philadelphia Eagles right now. So if that's the case, then, and they potentially could have 3 first-round picks next year, okay.
Well, the thing of it is, and you mentioned your first thing is anger. I say this, I say this like jokingly, laughingly, is people don't want to say I like this trade because they don't want to say I think Howie Roseman made a smart move. Their initial reaction is to say I don't like it because I don't like him.
Yep. Don't trust him. How's Howie? I didn't trust him to make the right move at 6. How's he going to make the right move at 12?
If you didn't trust he was going to make the right pick at 6, why not embrace that he added an extra pick?
Right.
And just ask backwards yourself. Like I said, people didn't like Henke, Henke made mistakes, but guess what? He drafted Joel Embiid. I said, maybe, just maybe, with Howie Roseman adding all these extra picks, one of them turns into his Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is it's not an exact science, right? I mean, there are people, and I hear you speak about it because I listen, if I'm not on the show, I listen to the show on a regular basis. And I know people love to kill Howie on the picks that he missed on, but Howie has hit on picks. Howie's been responsible for solid, if not spectacular at times, NFL players. And he's been the guy that has evaluated and drafted those players. So maybe they land on some. Look, Fletcher Cox was a 12, right? Maybe they land on a good pick.
By the way, many people believe that Roseman made the selection of Fletcher Cox at 12.
Yeah, so there you go.
Not many people who don't like Roseman, many people who follow the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, look, he's an easy guy to hate, right?
The other guy that he picked that worked out was Lane Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
The other guy that he picked out that he picked was Zach Ertz.
Lane's one of my dirty 30 club right now. Lane's going to be, I think, 31. There's some other guys in there that are but Jason Kelsey's not getting any younger, right?
No,
I mean,
to me, like people talk about the Eagles line is old, they're broken down. They've had injury problems. So the broken down, I think, is somewhat fair.
Mm-hmm.
But Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, those guys are like 30, 31. They're not going away like next year. Like these guys play 4 or 5 more years, you would think.
I mean, Brandon Graham's 33. I mean, he did make the Pro Bowl, but he is, Brandon Brooks you talk about. Darius Slay was supposed to be the shutdown answer. He's 30, right? He's been disappointing. And even, look, Fletcher Cox is so good that they scheme ways to shut him down, right? But 8 days after he turned 30, he had 1 sack in all of December. So everybody out there, you need younger guys. So I'm all about this move to get more pieces in. I'm okay. I've come full circle. At first I was like, oh man, I really wanted Kyle Pitts. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe they'll, and it's still possible. God, it would really surprise me. But if maybe they will end up with Devontae Smith or somebody like that, or Waddle.
I saw a mock draft yesterday that had the Eagles taking Pitts at 12. And I was like,
no way, right?
If that happens, holy mackerel. But I've seen a lot of them that say at 12 you're going to get Smith or Waddle, one of those, like one of the receivers. I think Howie recognized with all these quarterbacks in play, there could be 5 quarterbacks taken. You pick 5 quarterbacks. That means 7 players that, or 6 players, because you have the 7th. 6 players. You're telling me that 4 of those 6 are going to be wide receivers?
Yeah, which is, I mean, that doesn't seem, that's the mystery and the beauty of it. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. But what I do know is that Now defense comes into the possibility too. And are you on, like, if it was a defensive pick, are you disappointed, or does it depend on who the defensive pick is?
Depends on who the defensive player is. I don't mind Micah Parsons. I would take him. I don't mind J.C. Horn. I would take him. I don't mind Patrick Surtain. I would take him. Caleb Farley, I'm a little iffy on because of the back problems.
Okay.
He didn't play last year. Bothers me a little bit. So that would bother me a bit. But the other guys, Parsons, a linebacker, I think that he's – the NFL, the game has changed.
But there was a Miami defensive end in there too. What if it's a pass rusher, right?
I'm out on Rousseau. I'm out on Payne. I don't love the pass rushers in this year's draft. I'll wait to take one of those guys. Not that they don't need one. I think they need one. I don't like Rousseau, and I don't like Payne. I don't think either of those guys, to me, are worth taking at number 12.
Who was the 1979 linebacker that they did draft? Since I know that half of the stat, but who was the player?
Who's that? Robinson?
In 1979, Jerry Robinson, right out of UCLA.
Yeah. So
he was a Pro Bowler.
The Eagles taking a linebacker is not very likely.
No, about as likely as, me getting internet that works from home, or wait, I'm trying to make this analogy and I'm struggling.
Well, I'll tell you what. At 12, after looking at this over, like I said, if the 5 quarterbacks, which I don't know if all 5 will go, but let's say 4.
Okay.
If 4 of them go in the top 12, 7 selections are of something else. I can't imagine that all 7 of those are wide receivers and Kyle Pitts.
So you figure that they're in pretty good shape because of the way things have stacked out.
Yeah, I think that Roseman said the same thing I saw. If I'm at 12, these 5 players I don't really care if I get. Trevor Lawrence, well, of course you want these guys, but I'm not in play for them. Trevor Lawrence and the other quarterbacks.
Right.
All right, so I don't care.
Mac Jones is one of them.
Right. Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. Those 5 players there, if they go in the top 12, I'm okay with that because I don't want one of those guys. Penei Sewell, he would be another one that if I'm in charge is off my board I don't want. All right? So that's another player. Let's say somebody takes Micah Parsons. That's a defensive player.
Is Penei Sewell off your board because you think he won't be available or because you don't want him?
I don't want to take an offensive lineman in the first round.
Okay.
If it's me running the draft room.
Fine. I'm enjoying this.
Offensive lineman?
No, but I just know that he's highly touted and spoken about, and there's a lot of people that think he'll be gone.
He's a guy that I would say, look, I'm okay if someone else takes him. So 5, 6, Parsons, 7, and that means 8, 9, 10, 11, that still gives me one of those players.
Man, if it's Kyle Pitts, then do they hold a parade or do they celebrate? Is there cheering wildly? I'd be happy.
I'd like to see the strange reaction from the people who don't like Howie Roseman.
Right, how do they respond?
React to, wow, they made this trade, added another first-round pick, got a 4th-round pick in this year's draft, which they didn't have, and added the player that I wanted at 6.
Yeah, that'd be pretty unbelievable.
That will be a definitely interesting scenario.
Can't we just do this next week? Why do we have to wait like 20 more days?
Yeah, you know why? Because there's no combine this year, and all these days are all happening. So it's adding to, and people asked about, well, Roseman got a pick in next year's draft. A lot of scouts have been saying they prefer the picks in next year's draft because this year is so hard to scout because of the COVID situation.
Oh, yeah, I have heard that line too. Yeah, that it's even more magnified of what a crapshoot it can be. So, yeah.
11 picks in this year's draft, 3 possible 3 first-round picks in next year's draft. So there you go. That's what's happening with the Philadelphia Eagles and the draft situation. It's a Tuesday with Thompson, the PT, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. He's back for Happy Hour Friday, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. You got the Phillies? I got the Phillies. Look at that.
Yeah, look at us. We're Julius. We are like brothers. We are twins. And we didn't even talk about them, but that's all right. We can talk about them on Friday.
Were you surprised that they decided to send down Herrera?
I was. I thought he was going to make the team, but I guess that speaks volumes to Hazley and his health. And I guess Dombrowski said today, Dave Dombrowski said it had nothing to do with PR or optics. It had everything to do with at-bats. That could be spin, or probably is spin, but
I think if you look at it realistically, okay, and Frank has been on the show and said this a bunch, other than the fact that he hit 4 home runs, he really didn't he didn't really outperform the other guys.
Right. So, and then they put him down, and he's still around. It's not like he's not like Ghost. They didn't get rid of the guy completely. They're just starting him out in the minors.
All right, PT's back on Friday. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Peter, have a good one.
You too, buddy. Good seeing you.
All right, back with him on Friday for a happy hour Friday with the PT. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Black Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia, Blackhorse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. All right, we got plenty more to go. Sound of the day. And as we talked about the Phillies, I gave you my 10 predictions for the Phillies earlier at 97.3ESPN.com. One of them doesn't look like it's going to happen, but the other 9 are still in play. But I'll give you another Phillies prediction that I think will happen. And I have that coming up next on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, and watch the show live on 97.3ESPN.com. All right, thanks to Pete Thompson. The PT's here. I told you before the break, one thing about the Phillies. I have a 10 predictions for the 2021 season at 97.3 ESPN.com. Check them out. One of them, of the 10, I think is kind of, it's not completely out of play, but, I mean, it's about Scott Kingery, so I think it's probably out of play. But I have another thought on the Phillies that I want to throw into the mix. I would say bold prediction, but here we go. So my bold prediction, and I mentioned this is like part of the 10 predictions, but one of them is that Bryce Harper will have his biggest year as a Philly. Another one is about Alec Bohm. But I will say this. I feel like Alec Bohm is going to be in the MVP conversation. I think he's going to have that big of a year. Here's the problem. I don't think he'll win an MVP award right now or maybe even ever because I don't think the power numbers are going to be where they need to be. But that's how talented and good I think this kid could be. And I probably just gave him the kiss of death because I said that. I don't think he's like, and I say MVP, I don't think he's going to be like a top 2 or 3. But I'm talking about he'll have top 10 votes. And possibly even better than Bryce Harper. You know, Bryce Harper's entering his 10th year in Major League Baseball. Can you believe that? Think about that. Bryce Harper is in his entering his 10th year of baseball. And he has yet to win a playoff series, by the way. Do you ever envision that happening with the Philadelphia Phillies? I don't know. But Alec Bohm, I really like him a lot. I really do. And you know what I like about him? It's the anti-Scott Kingery. And I say that in not a bashing Kingery way. Alec Bohm is a baseball player. You throw it to the outside part of the plate, I'm going to hit it to the outside. Throw me inside, I'll turn on it. You throw it down the middle, I'm going to hit it right back up the middle. Throw it a little outside, I'll slap it over the second baseman's head. You want to throw a fastball just on the outside part, I will step and drive it to right field. That's Alec Bohm's game. And I just hope that the Phillies don't sacrifice this kid as a very good all-fields hitter. And I don't think they will. I think this new regime will not do that. I think they did this with Kingery, and I think that really hurt him and others, by the way. Not just Kingery. But I think Alec Bohm is something special. I think they got something with him. I'm excited about that. We opened up the show about guys who were young, who burst on the scene and then faded away. Almost every team has one in Philly. Shane Gossisbehere waived today by the Flyers. They waived him. The guy was a Norris Trophy contestant, candidate. And they waived him. Scott Kingery got a contract, a 6-year, $24 million deal before he ever stepped on the field with the Phillies. They sent him to their minor league site. I mean, Michael Carter-Williams was the rookie of the year, and then they never heard from him again. And people complain that they trade the rookie of the year away. I haven't heard anybody complain about that trade in 6 years. Heck, it took 6 years for the trade to materialize. With all the damn picks from the Lakers and this pick and protected. But Michael Carter-Williams was another one. He was the rookie of the year, and then he just faded away. I mean, he's still bouncing around the league. I think he's been on every team in basketball. He's been on Chicago, Milwaukee, Orlando. I mean, my gosh, this guy's been there at Phoenix, I think. I mean, Michael Carter-Williams has been all over the place. But just because you're good for 1 year doesn't mean it. But Alec Bohm, Rhys Hoskins, by the way, he's another one. Rhys Hoskins is another guy who burst onto the scene. And I'm not saying that he's been a bust, but after his first, couple months in Major League Baseball, when he had 18 home runs, this guy had a monster first impression. He has not lived up to what people thought he might be. Doesn't mean he's been a failure. just turned into a nice player, nothing special. I don't think Alec Boehm is in that category. I think he's better than all those guys, has the staying power. And the Phillies need it. 609-403-0973. Text board 609-403-0973. I saw a text last night that Josh got on game night that I wanted to touch on. I meant to touch on this earlier today. I didn't get a chance to, but we still have a little bit of time in the segment. And I read this before the show, and I saw this this morning, and I started chuckling a little bit. And this guy didn't leave his name, but he says, at what point, and I don't know if Josh even addressed this. It wasn't Josh's show. It was at 6:55 this morning. I thought it said 6:55 last night. So it's 6:55 this morning. Because it wasn't read. The text message wasn't read, so I clicked on it. It was I'm looking at it now, 6:55 a.m. I thought it was last night on your show. He says, at what point do the Sixers fans realize that if we didn't have Daryl Morey, we would have James Harden? I like Morey. He's good at his job, but he cost us a shot at James Harden. And look at the domino effect that has taken place afterwards. Clearly, James Harden is what everyone was saying he wasn't. He is a top 5 player who can lead a team to the NBA Finals. Well, let's break this down. Let's unpack this for a second. Clearly, James Harden is what everyone's saying he wasn't. No one's saying that. Everybody acknowledges that James Harden is clearly one of the best scorers in basketball in the game today, and maybe ever. As just a scorer, James Harden might be one of the best that this league has ever seen. He is a top 5 player. Here's the part that I have to say I don't know that you're right about. You say he's a top 5 player who can lead a team to the NBA Finals. He's had multiple opportunities to lead a team to the NBA Finals, but it hasn't happened. He's had the chance to say, hey, Steph Curry, I'm better than you. They lost. He's had a chance to lead those Rockets teams that had Chris Paul. Now, I know Chris Paul was hurt in the one series, and they ended up losing that series. He had Russell Westbrook. That didn't work out. They've had teams that went toe-to-toe with the Warriors and lost. So far, James Harden has not shown that he can lead a team to the NBA Finals. The interesting part will be here, Kevin Durant. He was on Oklahoma City. They got to the finals. They did not win. He bolts for Golden State. They win. Now he's on another super team. But if they make the finals, will it be because of James Harden, who, by the way, many people think is the MVP of the league right now? And I don't have much of an argument with it. I don't really have a strong feel for the guys that are involved, Jokic or Harden. I will say this. Brooklyn's the 2 seed. Denver, I think, is 6 or 5 or somewhere in that range. You almost have to give a slight lean to James Harden, who, by the way, is doing a lot of this without Durant. Durant's only played in 19 games this year. Harden's played in 32 games. That trio of players for Brooklyn, the 3 of them, Kyrie has played in 32, Harden's played in 32, Durant's played in 19. Durant scores 29 a night, Irving 28, and Harden 26. So I don't have a problem with James Harden if you're telling me he's a top 5 player. He might be the MVP, all of that. But he has had a chance to lead his team to a championship, and he hasn't got to a finals yet. So just to unpack that text message a little bit. I mean, Harden's averaging 26 points a night, 3.36%. He's been very good. Very good. Now, Jokic, the problem with Denver is where they sit in the standings. That's the one problem I have, because otherwise he's scoring 27 a night with 11 rebounds, 42% from three, 8.5 assists. I mean, he's been almost a triple-double. That team's just not good enough in the standings for my liking. Yeah, you take him off that team, they're average at best. And they're just average right now. They're 10 games over 500. Average isn't fair. They're good. 609-403-0973. George says, this presents a real conundrum. If we don't trust Howie Roseman to pick the right guy, how should we feel knowing he doesn't like Jalen Hurts? Does that bode well for Hurts' success? This is going too far. Roseman has done a solid job in finding people, just not all the time. He's made mistakes, just like every other NFL GM in football. Again, I asked the other day, give me a GM that you like, that you feel is very good. Who's the best GM in the NFL? I have no problem with the trade. I don't have any problem with them keeping Hurts. I don't care. And I don't think that Roseman doesn't like Hurts. I don't think that's accurate at all, to be honest with you. I think he likes Hurts. He drafted him in the second round last year, for God's sakes. Sports Bash is brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. All right, we come back. Sound of the day. Sound of the day. Stick around. Sound of the day. Back with more Sports Bash. All right, here we go. 5 sounds of the day that we picked out throughout today's show with our guest, Mark Jackson, Frank Close, Andrew DiCecco. So let's see what we picked out for today's segment. Mark Jackson was a member of the show today for today's Inside the Sixers and had this to say about the acquisition of George Hill and how he would fit in.
George Hill brings a lot of those same qualities that Kyle Lowry could bring. He's a defender. He's tough. He's a ball distributor. He can shoot the ball. He is going to fill in very well with this Sixers organization. Most importantly, it gives a chance to move Shake Milton to the 2-guard spot.
Yeah, when he said that, I jotted that comment down too, that he does a lot of the things that Kyle Lowry does. He just isn't as flashy, big a name. He's not the all-star. He's kind of like the cheaper version of Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, it's like back in the day, for those of us who are old enough to actually remember driving cars in the 1990s, there was this line of Chevys out there. They're called Geos. It was Geo, the Geo Metro, the Geo Prisms. They were like the combination of the Chevy and the Toyota. And they were like the mutt car that nobody really wanted, but the car worked perfectly great and fine and lasted forever. That's George Hill. George Hill is going to be just as good. He's just not going to be flashy about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a grinder. Scores 10, dishes 3.
Plays defense.
That's, to me, what stands out about him.
Listen, when you go up against the Nets now, you can go out there with a lineup of Simmons, Thibault, and Hill matching up with their big three. Because you're not going to stop them, obviously, but you can at least slow them down, and that's the key.
That's what Mark mentioned today, by the way. He said the same thing, which was, hey, you're not going to stop Kyrie, but you can give him problems. Mark Jackson, what about the Sixers without Embiid?
I learned that they can score. I learned that the depth on a chart is not bad at all. I learned that they have a lot of chemistry. So with those things being said, it's so important to understand, like, this is an opportunity for them guys to build confidence in themselves, and they did build confidence in themselves. And the 76ers, to me, have shown that they are not just a 3 seed or a 4 seed or mediocre seed. They show that they're a real deal.
Real deal. Real deal Holyfield, he says.
I love the way this team has stepped up without Embiid because it really proved that these guys are growing up. That Tobias, Ben, they're evolving their games, they're evolving their mentalities, they're stepping up. Obviously, Dwight, as he owned himself up to his guys, are being thrown out of games. But listen, the team overall, they've done a really good job at filling the void without Embiid. Not that they can win without Embiid on a consistent basis in the postseason, but at least they can show they can get through the regular season without him if necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows the depth that he has a good enough supporting cast.
And you're not going to win without your supporting cast.
Right.
So don't forget that.
Andrew DiCecco, number 12. Who you like?
I think at 12, they should be looking at a equity pay to bolster that defensive end room that, like when you look at it under a microscope, Brandon Graham's getting long in the tooth. Derek Barnett has been an enigma this far into his career, and Josh Sweat's a little limited in the snaps that he's able to accumulate due to his past injury history. So when you look at that, and Vinny Curry is a free agent. So, I mean, when you look at those things, I think that needs to be addressed.
I love the fact that he brings what he brings to the table, but I do not want to take a defensive end at 12. I'm not interested in those guys.
If the Eagles pass up one of the top 3 corners to take a defensive end, I will throw my phone at the wall.
Wow.
That is the stupidest idea. I love DiCecco's analysis, but I think he's way off on this. I don't think he appreciates the corner talent in this draft. To me, Surtain and Horn, they don't come around every year. All right. You can find defensive pass rushers every year, everywhere. Josh Sweat was a 5th round pick, 4th round pick. You can find pass rushers. 4. You can't find corners at this level. You need defensive back help. Please. I don't want to see another Eagles season where I'm seeing everybody and their cousin burning Avonte Maddox out there because you didn't want to draft Asante Samuel Jr. for a mediocre pass rusher.
That's a problem. I don't mind the pass rusher. I just don't think that these two guys are better value than what I can get from the corner group. I like all 3 corners better than the 2 pass rushers.
Me too.
When it's all said and done, when the dust settles, it wouldn't surprise me if J.C. Horn becomes the top corner in this class, and that very feasibly could happen if another team prefers his skill set and ceiling and upside over the more polished and refined, but less, kind of less flashy, so to speak, the Patrick Surtain. And I mean, I think right there, that would be great value. You're getting a day one starter.
I like Horn. And I like Horn better than I like the two pass rushers. So if he's there and the two pass rushers are there and they take one of the pass rushers, I'm not going to be happy.
You can't go wrong with Surtain or with Horn at all. To me, either one of those guys are going to be really, really good NFL players.
I even like Farley better than the two, and I'm a little skeptical on Farley.
Yeah, I just feel like the two pass rushers they're only highly touted because they're the best of a mediocre lot.
All right, one more.
These types of players, Rashad Bateman's going to be somebody that's going to rise and probably be a come off the board very early on day two. So there's a ton of receivers here that can Elijah Moore. It's all a matter of what your flavor is and what your preference and what your need really is. But there's going to have all shapes and sizes of talent there.
You can walk out of this draft with Surtain and Bateman. I'd be happy.
Bateman at 37, I would enjoy. I like him.
That's that X receiver that the guys on the inside of the Birds always talk about.
Hey, we're back tomorrow. Paul Hudrick is here tomorrow inside the Sixers. We'll recap tonight's game. Mosher has football at 4. Jay Fitz. Josh has game night up next. Jason Blevins is in the house. He's not in Denver.
Nah.
But he's talking Sixers with Josh coming up next at 6:20.